Greetings and felicitations, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show of the Intrepid radio program. We're not quite on air yet. We go on 3 minutes after the top of the hour onto the radio station, and that's about a minute and a half away. So, how is everybody tonight? Everything's working. My soundboard is up. My mic is up. Ported up. Let's see. Niall is here. He says, I always thought sex was overrated. The act itself is a basic act. I also think sex can be dangerous and that many times it can be used to mold and manipulate an entire relationship, which is wrong. You're partially right on all counts, brother. And we'll talk about some of that tonight. And we will have a Captain's Cabin after the top of the hour and the top of the next hour, 10 o'clock my time. And then we'll be able to call in. So, no sex in the champagne room, says Field Guy. Is that from something? What did I miss? The champagne room. So, no sex in the wine cellar? I know the wine cellar is a good place, but all depends on how dust-free it is. So, we got about 20 seconds and we go live. So, I'm going to go dark for a few seconds. Everybody sit tight. We'll be right back.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, greetings and felicitations, everyone. Welcome to the program tonight. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts, and this is my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's Subspace Odyssey is the official name, but you can go to odysseyradio.com to hear the audio-only version, radio, and that's over at ODYSY radio.com. Little different spelling. And you can come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts, and catch the show and join the chat room, which is already filling up with fellow Intrep heads. And you can join the conversation tonight. And we'll see where we're going with this topic tonight. Have you ever felt as if you were deprived sexually? Now, this is something that Niall brought up, something very interesting. Niall from Ireland, our friend, he's in the chat room tonight. He mentioned something about how, let me read this. He said, this was in the pre-show. He said, always thought sex was overrated. The act itself is a basic act. I also think sex can be dangerous and that at many times it can be used to mold and manipulate an entire relationship, which is wrong. Well, on that same base, I think money could be considered the same thing. A lot of things in life that can be used to mold and manipulate somebody else. Sex, yeah, it's up there because everybody craves it to one extent or another. Hey, Michelle Canham-Free, good to see you. 10 years have disappeared from my hair. So, I put a little bit of color in my hair last week because I hadn't done it. And I swore I was never going to do that again. And I was feeling really white and washed out and wan and old. And so I thought, well, maybe if I put a little color in my hair, it will help. Well, it dyed too dark. It was supposed to be light blonde, and it ended up almost goth black. So I must have left it in too long or something. But now it's started to fade in a little bit, and I realize the darker my hair is, the more scalp you can see in between instead of the white. And so I see how bald I'm getting. So I had a friend today say, why don't you just shave that? I said, well, Rainey won't let me. So there's that. But back to this sexual thing, I'm wondering how you all feel about your sex life. Now, this show is by no means a sexual therapeutic show of any kind. I talk about stuff like with everything else, stuff that affects me or affects my friends or things that we in general, Rainey and I, look at, other people look at, and questions get thrown out. We were doing the show last night with Wendy's Wicked Women, and she was talking about rejection, sex rejection. Have you ever been rejected sexually? Either done the rejecting or received the rejecting? And I got to join in with the conversation a little bit with Wendy and Valerie and a few other guys. And we talked about it. And I thought this would be a great topic to look at the male end of this. So I want to throw this out there. I didn't state right away in the show announcement for tonight that I want to look at males, men, and sexual deprivation, although many things cross over. We're going to talk about it. But I think guys seem to be the ones that, for the most part, feel sexually deprived. And I'm talking about in relationships, in long-term relationships. Something happens sometimes that makes guys feel like, God, I don't want to be a scumbag or a perv or overuse sex, but damn it, I'd like it more than once every 3 months or 6 months or 6 weeks or 4 days, whatever it might be. And so the question comes up, is sexual activity important? Is it something, as I put right here in our show banner for tonight, no marriage, and I could say long-term relationship, can survive without sex or the exchange of sexual energy in the long term. That relationships don't survive well between the opposite sex. And is that a true statement, do you think? Are relationships affected by our sexual behavior? And do we put too much stock in it? As Niall had said earlier, it's overrated. I got to put on my glasses so I don't have to keep squinting. So I'll just leave them on. Niall says it's ironic, but I feel strongly about sex and its damaging qualities. Yeah, it's got damaging qualities. Sure, it does. It's also got really good qualities, really enjoyable qualities. Anything can be used and turned into a weapon or to weaponize, or people who maybe are just unscrupulous. Sex can be something that gets turned into violence. Sex can be something that's turned into manipulation. Sex can be something that is sex ever held out as dangled as the carrot in front of your face? And you perform, and I'll perform for you type of thing. And there's going to be a lot of, Sarah Youssef, I was going to write you today and say, where you been? So you've been gone for a few weeks. And this happens. Yeah, this is where we are tonight. Yeah, we've had 2 straight weeks of constitutional law and our kids being damaged by the system and totalitarian talk. And I thought tonight we'd lighten it up just a little bit. So, this is what happens, Sarah. And Michelle says deprivation is perspective. It's different for everyone, like everything. And I agree. And here's the thing. Something that bothers me, and Michelle, you've hit on it a little bit, is there are no absolutes anymore. Nothing is absolute. Was it ever? And we just claimed that things were absolute. I think the only absolute that exists anymore is that there are no absolutes. And that's absolutely true. So if there are no absolutes, are there any truths? Are there any facts? Is there anything that means anything? And Michelle, not picking at all on what you said, but deprivation is perspective. Yes and no. Deprivation might be perspective in the sense of the person that feels they've been deprived. And maybe they think they're being deprived and they really aren't. There's other reasons for it. Deprivation can be, I think, a tool of manipulation, like Niall says. What was that field guy? She got tired of the sheet and said, I'm going home. I don't know. Shrugs. Missed that one. Sarah Yusuf says the short answer is yes. Niall says, I feel that the less you pursue the sex, the more that it will become available to you. Well, that's kind of like we used to say all the time. There were couples that were infertile, and they tried and tried and tried and tried everything. Tried drugs, tried artificial insemination, tried all different kinds of things. And when nothing seemed to work, they finally gave up. And I know more couples and more stories that I could come up with that I've run across over the years that as soon as they stopped trying, it happened. Now, maybe that's just a universal principle. The word deprivation, says Sarah, suggests a loss of some kind. Yeah. Do you think sex can be in the category of something you feel you've lost? Or something that, I don't want to use the word deserve, but something that I said kind of at the beginning, I'm shifting this toward the angle of men because men are the ones that express more deprivation than women do. And it's usually within a relationship that takes place. Because the man is kind of like, well, now that I'm committed, there's a couple of sides to this. Let me get this. See what you mean. You'll see what I mean. In a relationship, there's the train of thought that a man has conquered the woman, subconscious, natural order of things, kind of, he made his conquering feat. He won the woman, married her, and now he can let go. And within 10 years, he's fat and he's lost his hair and he's doesn't try anymore. Then he's got his wife, he's got his woman. Sex was great at the beginning. Then they had kids. Then he got busy at work. He's trying to make a living to make sure that they don't falter when they get old. Put away something. Maybe it's send his kids to college. Maybe it's just keep a roof over their head. So guys do these things and women do things as well. Sarah says, I don't agree with that. Women are always aware of the biological clock, while men can have kids in their 70s. Well, that's true. If you're thinking of biological clock, yes. Guys, yeah, it's true. Guys tend to be aloof on that a little bit more than women do. Relationships have seasons, yes. But what I want to talk about, and this is something I have gleaned from a feminist's point of view, and I've got this little article in front of me where she's talking about 5 reasons why women shouldn't deprive their man of sex or sexual energy. And this is a woman who is an author, a coach, a thought leader in the fields of masculine, feminine polarity and authenticity in long-term relationships. And her name is Renee. I'll tell you that much. And if you've been with a man, she says, for months or even years, you've likely noticed that he needs sex. Many times it's a lot, or at least a lot more regularly than most women go seeking it. We're speaking in generalities here now. But what happens when a woman is unable to offer that? And perhaps you're an exhausted mother or an overworked or an underappreciated woman. Michelle, don't we all? We all take umbrage at being told what we should or should not do. But are there not things that we tacitly, or we have contracts, we have nonverbal contracts. We get married, there are certain things that we obligate ourselves to each other on. Man and a woman in a relationship. I'm obligated to certain things. I get told what I should and should not do as a man. There are things that are expected of me. Now, I am not one of those men that's coming here saying, woman, it's your responsibility to take care of your man sexually. You better do that. That's not the point I'm making here. So don't get too umbraged yet about that. Let's get into this a little bit more. So what happens when you as a woman are unable to offer what your man's looking for, or claims he needs, or perhaps genuinely feels he needs? Perhaps you're an exhausted mom. You're overworked. You're underappreciated. It's also possible you don't feel like it for physical or psychological reasons. No woman can have sex with a man every single day for the rest of her life, although there's a lot of men that wish they could. Life changes us, Michelle says. Yeah, it does. Life does change us. And I'm here to say that we can let life change. Life changes us, but we can let the events of life change who we are, or we can maintain who we are despite the things that want to change us. Now, that's part of my attitude. Are there things that have made me sullen, things that have made me discouraged or depressed at times? Sure. I have my periods of things that I go through. I didn't just say I had a period, that I get a period. I don't. But not the same way a woman does. But I have my periodic moments where I have let the turmoil of life and all this stuff happen, and it changes who I am, at least temporarily, until I come back in tune with who I am. And it's like saying, when I make the statement, you can't offend me, because I would need to appropriate the offense and take it personally, bring it on as appropriation in order for it to offend me, which I think is a truism. You can't offend me unless I allow you to offend me. So, and I use it in a political sense. I talk about that a lot because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of bullshit that goes on out there that says, we're so offended. Like, you're offended if you appropriate that offense. Just don't appropriate it. Move on. Men think a cold is like having a bubonic plague, says Sarah Yusuf. They won't survive. They wouldn't survive menstruation. That's good funny. Yeah. But if that was built into us, that was something that was part of us biologically, though, I understand the humor in that, and we use that as humor. But if that was a biological part of who we were, I think we'd probably get over it. We'd probably deal with it. We'd roll with it, as well as we roll with anything else in life. Hey, Kelly, good to see you. It's a choice. Don't choose it. Exactly, Michelle. You don't choose to be offended. So I don't choose to allow the things in life that can change who I am now that I am of an adult mind. Now, when I was a kid, different. When I was a hormonal kid, different. When I was a young adult, a little different. But as I became an adult, I started to realize the things that I needed to do that were part of me, and the things that I didn't need to do that weren't a part of me. So menopause. Yeah. What about guys with God, what's it called even anymore? The midlife crisis. Guys have midlife crises. And because they have midlife crises, does that change them? Yeah, they feel that they're losing their vitality. It might be a chemical thing. It might be a testosterone thing. Maybe their libido is gone. Maybe they have erectile dysfunction that comes along with that. Maybe they can't hold their urine as much anymore because they're in their 60s. I know that one. It just hits you out of the blue and you go, oh, I got to pee. See ya. I'll be right back. And yeah, hormones change for both sexes. I get that. But what I am aiming at here is that there are things that we can do, things men can do for women, things women can do for men, that when you're in a relationship and you're committed to that other person, there are things that you do. Now, this is what I'm getting at. Before we get too side-railed in talking about all the hypothetical problems that could or couldn't be, this is what we do. There's no absolutes anymore. We got to dissect 352 different things along the way to making a point. But maybe the point is just clearer than we think it is. And we throw all this stuff at it. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about that? Well, we all do that to a certain extent. How much pressure would it be on a woman's shoulders to have to take care of her man sexually all the time just because he's asking? So just because a guy wants it doesn't mean you. How much do we want that we just get because we want it? About the only thing we do is I want a drink of water. I can usually go find a drink of water anytime I want one, or a cup of coffee, or a smoke, which I haven't smoked in a month. And I'm not telling anybody they should or shouldn't do anything. Just saying, when I got this chest virus about a month ago, it was like hell having a cigarette. And I said, fuck that. I'm not smoking right now because it hurts. And my throat and my chest. And so I just stopped smoking. Now it's been like a month and I just haven't felt like doing it. So I could, there have been a couple of times where I've gone, might be nice to have a smoke. And then I think, nah, if I have one, I'll have 4 more. So I just said, forget it. I just won't smoke. Now, I don't care. That's you guys. Everybody has to do their own thing. But it's like that. There are things that I just say, this is a thing I can change my mind on. I can control this. Can I control my sexual drive? Can I control the things that are attached to my sexual drive? The things that give me a sexual drive? The things that are the result of having a sexual drive satiated? Is that a good word for that? Or taken care of? So at this point, you might wonder what happens when a man is sexually deprived. Do men need sex? And if they do, why? And why so often? Why do they want it so much? Why do guys, what do they say? The average male thinks of sex every what? They say, I don't know where they get the averages from, but the average is like 9 times a minute, or nine times an hour. Is it a minute? 9 times an hour? Something like that. And if we got it every time we thought about it, we'd be worn out ourselves. We'd probably crave it a lot less. But it's there. The craving is there. It's part of our physiology. Why? Why does that exist? So there's no easy way to strike a balance when your man needs sex a lot and you as a woman are already under so much stress that his needs for sex become just one extra thing on a pile of things to do. And so they're relegated. A man's sex drive within a relationship is relegated to being less important than other things. And we conscience it away. We justify it away. You don't need sex all the time. Why should you crave that? Why do you want that? What about me? I'm tired. What about me? I'm busy. I got things to do. What about me? I don't have a sex drive like that. My libido is different than yours. Ergo, yours should be too. That's kind of the practical outcome of that. So even if you can't offer your man the physical act of sex, it's vital that you give your man the gift of your feminine sexual energy. Now, some of you ladies out there, you women out there, you can talk about this. You know what that is. What is it? What is feminine sexual energy? And what does that mean? How do you gift that to someone else? What is feminine sexual energy? It's your energy of openness, acceptance, and love without having to have physical sex. Boom. It's that easy. Now, if a relationship doesn't have sex, it can survive that. If a relationship doesn't have affection, it'll die. It'll wither on the vine. So you can be dark feminine and sexually playful, and even just you can give a guy oral sex if you wanted to. But no marriage can survive without sex or the exchange of sexual energy in the long term. Now, that's an empirical statement I'm making. Prove me wrong. No marriage can survive without sex or the exchange of sexual energy in the long term. Sexual energy can be that thing that is, it's the stuff of affection. It's the stuff of getting close. It's the stuff of being close. What's sexual energy? One, it's essential to not deprive your man or your woman of sexual activity. But we're speaking specifically about men's needs on this particular show and how it affects women and how women should look at it. So it's essential not to deprive your man of sexual activity. And if you can't exchange in sexual activity, then there's one thing that's deeper than sex that you can offer: your feminine sexual energy. Now, I know just as well as any other man or woman out there, I can look at my wife's perspective. A married woman and a mother to children, it's not always easy to keep having regular sex with a man after having a family. Now, like, I look at my own relationship. I'm giving away no secrets here, but my own relationship. We are surrounded by kids all the time. The youngest one is the worst offender. I don't think there is a 2-minute. I'll be conservative. I'll be liberal. Let's give it a liberal. I don't think there's a 4-minute period of time when our kids are home that the little one, the 8-year-old, who's not so little anymore, is not always in between us, hanging on mom or hanging in between us. She's attached to Rainey at the hip. The middle one has kind of grown out of that. She's almost 12. And so she's not so much, but she's a kid in our home. We have children. My wife has always been the stay-at-home mom. I've always been a stay-at-home dad because I work here. So my kids benefited from having the both of us here. Did that alleviate anything? No. Always stressful. Rainey always believes she's the one who does everything. I always believe I'm the one who does everything. Except I know better because I know she does all this stuff like scouts, and she'll take them out and, go do stuff with the little one or go shopping with them or whatever. And I do that sometimes. And so our kids tend to be, when we have a day where there's nothing planned and nothing going on, guess what? The kids are all day, every day, needing attention of some kind. It's like, can you guys just go play and go do something? Can you leave mom and dad alone for 10 minutes, please? Can I go poop without a kid knocking on the door? Mom and I both say that. Rainey and I both say that. So, preach it, Scotty, says Ryan Gale. Cuddling, says Steve. It's like when I was away for a week on business, I'd say to Rainey, and it was kind of tongue in cheek, but I was kind of serious too. It's like, I know you're going to want to cuddle and all that and get together. I said, can we just get the sex part out of the way? And then you can cuddle with me for the rest of the day. I'm there. And it's just the way a guy thinks. So naturally thinks. We break out of that when we work at breaking out of that. So if a man and a woman, husband and wife, mother and dad, are the only ones responsible for the children, and especially if you're also like my wife was a breastfeeding nursing mother. And she was very open about that, by the way. She was a big believer in breastfeeding. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this for 6 weeks and be done with it as fast as I can. No, she believed in breastfeeding. She breastfed our kids for 2 years, and we'd have a 2-year-old kid reach up and try to open up mom's shirt in public. I think that's pretty, pretty normal. But so she spent, with 3 kids, she spent probably 6 months to a year of her life breastfeeding and walking around the house naked without a top on, which was great for me, except when she was pregnant or breastfeeding, you can look but not touch. Those little big things, balls of fun and enjoyment and intimacy and all of that great stuff, have become utilitarian nutrition stations for my kids. So you can't do the same things anymore. Very romantic, says Sarah. Thank you. I don't know what that was too. Yeah, there is jealousy there, if that's what you're talking about. And I think I told you all that story on my 50th birthday party. So this is almost 13 years ago. We're at an Irish pub, and we had about 100 people came to my party. And so we're hanging out at Merlin's Rest in Minneapolis, and separate bunch of round tables in the event side of the bar, and all these people hanging out. And I'm talking to some friends, and I feel like water dripping. I'm like, what the hell was that? And I'm looking up, and the people I'm sitting with kind of look up too. Did something drip on you? And I go back to, we're talking, and I get it again. I'm like, what the hell? And then I hear laughing over there, and at a table about 10 feet away is Rainey sitting with some other group of our friends, and she's got a boob out, which she was never bashful about doing. She's got a boob out, and she's breastfeeding, at the time, Flynn. And they all bet her $5 she couldn't hit me by expressing breast milk from her nipple from 10, 12 feet away. Well, she won that bet. She took home a little pool of money. So that's very romantic. But that's a side story. That one was for free. But Elvis has entered the building. Welcome, Elvis. As a minimum, you should aim. I'm not taking up that last story and talking about aim, but you should aim to not deprive women. Do not deprive your men of your open, feminine, sexual energy. And here's 5 reasons I've got, and I've got another 15 as well. But here's 5 reasons that this feminist woman says there are 5 reasons why women should not deprive their man of sex. So all of you ladies out there, hear this out. And guys, hear it too, because there's principles for us all to learn here. Number 1, the only difference between a friendship and a relationship is what? Somebody give me a quick answer. It's a 1-word answer. What is the only difference between a friendship and a relationship? 1 word. Anybody know what it is? Anybody? Sarah says, does that mean humans are energetic vampires to a degree? Yeah. And I know there's a time delay here, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. Intimacy. The only difference between a friendship and a relationship is the level of intimacy. Trust, says Nigel. Banging, says Elvis. Well, there's that too. Though I've had friends that I've banged. So, through the course of my life. Not anymore. That's bygone days. But without sexual energy in a relationship, what are you? You can still establish intimacy with sexual tension and emotional attraction. So sex is just the cherry on the top, the frosting on the cake. But without sexual energy in a relationship, what are you? Roommates, companions, best friends? If a couple doesn't have much sex or share much sexual energy and tension, then this generally means they lack passion and that they could be more in love. So there's no such thing as losing the feeling of being in love. No such thing. I don't believe. You just lose the state of being in love. And you lose polarity and passion with your spouse. So things that happen, sad to say. I don't love him anymore. No, you've lost the polarity. You've lost the passion. So you can be in love and have passionate sex into your old age. I could see myself doing that. You know what? Hey, Valerie, good to see you over there in the chat room. So love can grow and evolve, says Sarah. Exactly. So, and Val, if you didn't catch this at the beginning, this is kind of this whole idea of tonight's show came off of your show with Wendy last night. So, yes, sex is not the only way to achieve intimacy, but it is one of the main and most important ways to achieve intimacy between a man and a woman. Intimacy is expressed sexually or with that sexual energy that I was talking about earlier. Not making sex or the exchange of dark and light sexual energy a priority can cause your relationship to deteriorate. If you don't believe that, try it. Not because I want to see you ruin your relationship. Passion simply dies out if there is nothing in that giving and that taking of dark and light sexual energy. Excuse me. So, Blanche from the Golden Girls, I have no idea what she. I know what the Golden Girls was, and I know who Blanche was, but never watched the show. So, it's the quickest. So, not making sex or the exchange of dark and light sexual energy a priority is going to cause your relationship to deteriorate. And the passion simply dies out. And you want to see how quickly passion can die out? Deprive each other of sex or sexual energy. Number 2, women have multiple ways to meet their connection needs. So women could go to their girlfriends, they can go to a counselor, they can go to a guy friend, a mother, a father, a relative, an aunt to connect and to talk to people. Men generally don't do a lot of that. I don't call up Rocky Stucci or John Ward and go, hey, I got to talk to you about my problem sexually. We just don't do that. We share certain things with guys, but it's not part of who we are. Valerie says sex isn't the main part of a relationship, but it's a part of a great relationship. Boom, bada boom, bang on. So, and I'm not saying that there aren't men who do call their guy friends up. I do, for a long chat about their feelings, their problems, their sex life. I have one good friend that I talked to. His name is Guy Sasso. He was my roommate back in the 80s. I was divorced from my first wife, and he leased me my townhome at the time, and we became great buddies. We've been friends ever since. He lives in Arizona. He's been in Arizona ever since 6 months after we met, but we became great friends, and we still are. He is one of the guys that I can share intimate stuff with because he's a guy that's like that, and he's a man's man. Leave that at that. So guys do have friends that we can call and talk about our junk. But in comparison to women, men don't spend as much time or energy on this. We just don't. And we're not made that way. Maybe we wouldn't internalize so much if we did. But sex is one, ladies, hear this, sex is one of the major and most important ways through which a man gets his needs of connection and love met. Whether you think it's unimportant or not, men get their needs met through sexual connection. It's that intimacy level. And of course, emotional connection is important too. Not only does emotional connection make sex better, without it, there's not a real relationship. Because that's the thing, that's the intimate thing that separates me from a girl that might be my friend or a woman that might be my friend. I have women friends that can't fulfill that for me. So I'm a married guy. Took a vow not to do that. Does that mean my brain doesn't go there? No. It means I can't exercise that part of my brain. So without emotional connection, the relationship is vulnerable to every single challenge that shows up outside of the relationship. Men aren't just asking for sex because it feels good and they got to get their rocks off, although that's part of it too. There are the days where we say, I want to make love to you. I have bought a bottle of wine and I have a rose and we are going to make passionate love all night. And then there are the days you're like, I'm going to fuck you like a rock. I'm just going for it. And it's the way we do. But men can easily have sex with a woman without ever developing feelings for that woman. You know that? With one exception. When he loves her. That's the exception to that. It used to be, I was never one to go out and just wantonly have sex with any woman. Although there were times it was like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And you do. With no intention of taking it any further. But I was a guy I was always kind of, I don't want to do that unless I have an emotional connection. And with Rainey, I got to tell you, there's part of it where I liked her. We started hanging out. And the friends with benefits started almost right away. And it was glorious. And, but you know what I did? I ended up pushing Rainey away for a good 6 months. I did not want to get into another relationship, but I didn't want her to not be around either. And there was one point where she left. She said, I can't do this. And I remember she came to my house to get all her things. It'd been 6 months. And she had a bunch of stuff at my house, a bunch of clothes. And she came and she looked absolutely perfectly beautiful. That long, raveny hair. And she had on, if I remember right, like a man's white dress shirt. Opened up, and blue jeans. And she was sad. She didn't want to really do that. And there was another woman friend that had stopped by just a few minutes before Rainey, a few minutes after Rainey got there. And I wanted to talk to Rainey. And this woman was a friend. It was a friend with benefits type of thing, had been in the past. And she was making overtures and I think trying to pee on the fire hydrant a little bit. And I just didn't want that. I wanted to talk to Rainey. I wanted Rainey. And I sent this woman home. I said, I said, maybe we'll get together next week, have some coffee or something. I said, I got some stuff to do. I want to talk to Rainey. And it was that day. I dropped to my knees in front of Rainey and I said, I don't want to lose you. And I said, I know I have done everything in my power to take what you'd give me and to not give you a relationship. And I said, I'm done. I promise you, I'm done. And there were times over the early years where I thought, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done this, because we all do that, don't we? We all have our relationships. We go, man, maybe I shouldn't have gotten involved with this person. And that was just early relationship growing pains. I got to tell you now, I love my wife more than anybody in this whole world. And she's not even listening. And I could not imagine my existence without Rainey. And I would never want it to be. And Here's an incredibly stupid, half comical, silly, selfish statement. I hope I die first because I don't want her to die first and have me have to be left without her. You want to talk about how weak and emotional men are? There it is. But have we had our times, Rainey and I, where intimacy is not very high? Yeah. Have we had our times where we've almost ended our relationship? Yeah. And sometimes the glue that holds it together are your responsibilities and your obligations. We got kids. We're going to stick this out. Sarah just said the cost-benefit analysis of love. That's not weak, she said. Every Barbie needs a Ken. Who cares? Your point is tainted with stereotypes. I don't think it is, because I'm no Ken. I have no six-pack. But I think people can build, and this is for you, Niall, especially. I believe, well, first of all, it's going to sound cliche. I believe in love. And you might want to turn around and ask, well, what is love? I think you know it when you've got it. You know it when you pursue it. You know it when you work to have it. You know it when you work to keep it. And then after you work to keep it, you find out it's no work anymore. It keeps itself. Unless I do something stupid or we stop caring for each other. I care for my wife. And she cares for me. There's times she could live without me. Oh, hell. Rainey could get along just fine without me. Or could she? I could say, I can get along fine without Rainey. No, I couldn't. And that's not a dependence that's built on codependency. That's one that's built on building a love for somebody. Does that mean it's always perfect and rosy and we're walking barefoot on rose-petaled paths? No. Sometimes there's not a contempt, but there's a go fuck yourself attitude toward each other. Go fuck yourself. And then both of us in our own ways will come back very quickly and go, I didn't mean that. I was just mad or disappointed or this or that. So one of the main ways in which a man expresses his love, and it's one of the major ways in which a woman can show and prove her love for her man, although by no means the only way, is if a man loves a woman, he wants to have sex with her because he loves her and wants her to be open to him, and vice versa. A woman knows this, I think, better than most men know. And for a lot of men, the man's woman is the only place you can go to for connection and love. I got women friends. I love dearly. Like you look at Wendy. I've known her for 20 years. I've known her almost longer than I've known Rainey. And I love Wendy dearly. But she is not who I go to for my intimacy. She's my friend. If Wendy and I ever chose to go that path in our past, we would have gone that path, and we didn't do it. It was not something either for me or for her or mutually, something we just didn't pursue. Rainey came along almost right away anyway. So, and I'm not trying to get into any point with that other than to say, I have women friends. I can be intimate with my women friends, but I can't be ultimately male-female intimate with my women friends. Men have a lot of challenges and responsibilities in the world. So do women. But it's important that he has a woman who understands his needs, what he needs. And that sounds selfish, except I'm talking about men right now. I could say equally powerful stuff about women. Sarah says the rejection of intimacy hurts a lot. Yeah, it does. That's what Wendy and Val's show was about last night. Of course, understanding a man's needs is not just about giving him sex, okay? Make sure you all understand that that's not the point I'm making. Men have many other needs too, but the issue of sex is one that many women struggle with. The modern Western world has been affected by the war of the sexes, which has given women the idea that they shouldn't prioritize a man's needs. Oh, that's a man's needs. I don't need to prioritize that. And that includes not wanting to meet his sexual needs regularly. However, the man is still expected to meet her needs because that's our job. Your man's needs are just as important as the needs of your children or the needs of your friends. You can't, and men, this is for you too. We can't prioritize things in place of the woman we have chosen to be with for our partner. Can't prioritize things. Sometimes things get prioritized in the way, and you work those things out. Honey, I can't go do that thing because I got this thing I planned. I'm going bowling or whatever it might be. So, Niles says, I think love and sex can be mutually exclusive. It is mutually exclusive. It is. I agree with you 100%. Those are mutually exclusive things, unless you are in a committed relationship to another person. Then it takes on a different tone. Just my opinion that dependence on sex to be able to enable a lifelong engagement is foolish and destructive. Sure it is. Sex is not an act, but a state. Sex is an act that we, or a state that we put ourselves into because of our intimate levels with somebody else. As my kids would be so fond of saying, using these terms, I don't go putting my wiener in a cooch for just shits and giggles. Okay? Now, they don't talk that way, but those are the terms they've used with mom and dad. I see your cooch, Mom. Or, Dad's got a wiener. You know, they're getting older now, so they of course know what these things mean now. But friends have their own lives too. A sexless marriage or a relationship without any sexual energy can cause a man to become dejected and resentful and wonder whether his wife even loves him or not. Because sex isn't just an act. As Niles said, sex is, I hate to use this word, it's a spiritual thing. It's a thing that is on a spiritual level, if you will. I'm not equating it to religious spiritual experience, although sometimes it is. But I am saying that it is a thing that is beyond just casualness, just an act. It's a thing that you do that seals intimacy. Sex is about communication. Communication is definitely involved, that's for sure, said Niall about communication. A sexless marriage or a relationship without sexual energy can cause a man to become dejected. It can cause a woman, but women's needs are different than men's. And with every rejection, the negative association with his wife or his girlfriend becomes stronger. And without this sexual energy inside of a relationship, it causes the man and the woman to feel less connected, to feel less alive. Because you know what? If I'm living with my wife and we're no different than roommates or friends from college, there is no intimacy there. Intimacy on a different level. Oh, we both like books, or we both like to do this. We both like this restaurant. That's not the same thing. And since we've only got a couple of minutes left over on the radio, I'll just give you these other points. Number 3, the masculine energy is about releasing and being free. Feminine energy is highly focused on releasing, while the masculine energy is focused on releasing and getting to a state of physical and emotional emptiness. The masculine energy wants to release. The feminine energy wants to fill up. So filling up is also very much about the emotional aspect of things. So feminine energy, they got a lot of ways to fill up: shopping, having sex, talking to girlfriends, connecting with their pets, talking, listening, and much more, and talking. But when it comes to the masculine energies need to release and experience emptiness, often it's the experience of sexual ecstasy or being desired by his woman, a woman of his choice, that allows him this feeling of freedom. There's a lot more material on that, but I'm going to go to number 4. It feeds a man's need for love from his woman. I know there's a lot of women that might lash out, but if two people are in a relationship and the woman denies her man sex or puts her career or friends first, then over time, this starts to build up negative associations within the man in a relation to the woman. And if a woman denies her man of sexual energy, this makes him feel less like a man, less loved, less accepted. And this can, not always, but it can lead to cheating. I don't like cheating because I'd rather be in love with the person I'm cheating with, my wife. So much more. And then number 5 is without your love and care, your relationship can die. So you have to think about what gives love and care to your relationship. Let's talk about this in the captain's cabin. Folks, if you're just listening on radio, we got to go now. It's time to leave you. But you can join us over on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can join the conversation in the captain's cabin. We're going to go dark or go to break, and we'll be right back. Radio audience, you know what? Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. and welcome to the captain's cabin. Glad you're all stuck around. Good to have you here. I'm seeing some of the comments here. Valerie said, we never want to think that we are not attractive or that our partner doesn't find us desirable the way they did on our first meeting. And, I'll tell you something. How many of us wish we could go back, if you've got a partner that you've been with for a while, you could go back and relive that original meeting. I think that'd be cool. But, I have in Rainey somebody that is Rainey not as svelte as she was the day we met? Yeah, she's had 3 kids. That doesn't matter. So she's not undesirable. She's very desirable. But people gauge. I only brought that up because people gauge that. She's not much different than she was the day we met. Me, I'm like 50 pounds heavier than I was the day we met. And work as much as I try, I would have to have a trainer and work 8 hours a day to get back to that kind of shape. But I don't have as much hair. It's not dark anymore, naturally. And it's white. There's times I look in the mirror and I go, wow, I got man boobs. And I got white chest hair. And, you look in the mirror and you go, wow, that sure hangs funny, that gut. You look at all that stuff. And we say, I don't look like I used to look. And I could get really self-conscious about that. There's times I say to Rainey, for as much of a guy as I am and as much as I love the intimacy, the sexual energy and all that, I'll go, I got to change my pants. Turn around. And change out of my pajamas into my pants. Turn around. Or I go hide behind the chair. She goes, what you hiding for? No, I'm not really hiding. I just didn't know if you want me flapping it in the wind at you. So, there's all kinds of things that if we didn't have that partner with us anymore, we'd realize that they're superficial. And Rainey and I don't care. She doesn't care. Oh, she cares because she wants me to be healthy. I also didn't have a big scar running down my chest when I first met her either. And so we've all got our stuff. She didn't have the ailments that she has. She didn't have the autoimmune stuff, the Hashimoto's stuff, all that. And she wasn't as stressed and tired out. She didn't have kids. And she wasn't taking care of all of us. Now, my wife takes care of me. But when I say that, I don't mean my wife doesn't have to wait on me. She doesn't have to feed me. I can feed myself if I need to. But we have meals together as much as we can. Many times our family, we make stuff. Rainey makes stuff and says, there's food there, guys, when you're hungry. Get that. I made chili. I made soup. I made, whatever she made. There's chicken and rice in the oven. We can sit down at the table, or we can, which we like to do, or everybody's on a different schedule. Grab what you need, or come in, everybody sit in the living room, and we'll eat. There's hot dogs tonight. I made cheeseburgers for lunch today. Just went and got beef. Rainey was working. She works from 7 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. I think 4 days a week she works. And up at the thrift store, the dollar store. And that's kind of a nice schedule for her. She's up at 7. The kids, I have to at 7:30. I got to take them to school. And they eat breakfast at school. I would prefer making breakfast for my kids. I did that for my older kids. We always made breakfast. I would love to do that. My kids just aren't into getting up on time. So, but we share these things. And so I've drifted a bit from my point, but emotional intimacy, Sarah says, can emotional intimacy satisfy a lack of physical intimacy? Yeah, I think so. I think that now, physical intimacy, I don't think that should be an absent thing in a relationship. I think that is something that people can use to show how much they love somebody. Can you replace it with emotional intimacy? I think to a certain extent you can. But I also think that the physical side is something that is built into us. And whether we like to admit it or not, men and women are physiologically different. Men's needs are different than women's needs. We've got some that we share. We all want to love somebody and be loved back. We all want intimacy, but certain levels of intimacy and kinds of intimacy. Like one of the physiological differences between men and women is that whole emptying out and that whole filling up thing. The difference between men and women. Women like to empty out their stuff. And, you could make that a physical metaphor, but men need to empty out with that intimacy. Women need to fill up with that intimacy. And so a guy that just expects to have sex whenever he wants it is a guy that's not paying attention to his woman's needs and her intimacy needs. So it's got to mesh. It's got to work. And Niall said it earlier. It's about communication. It's about staying in tune with each other. And I think people that don't have those close, intimate relationships with somebody else are probably the people. I don't want to say you don't understand it, but I'm saying you don't experience it. Maybe you've experienced it in the past and you don't anymore. That experience, what are you missing? We all seem to be, in general terms, people who aren't in relationships always kind of have a need to be on the lookout for one. And we go, oh, no, I don't. I don't need that. Well, yeah, you do. Whether you think you do or not. And we all look for those things. And we all strive for the perfect one, making it good, finding somebody that is going to be my companion. Not my buddy. I like Rainey. Rainey's my friend. She's my buddy. I like hanging with her, but she's more than that. So I think friendships, camaraderie is on a different level when you love somebody enough to be intimate with them. And I'm talking sexual intimacy, physical intimacy. Physical intimacy is an important thing. It's not the important thing. It's an important thing. And there's going to be a time, I think, in any relationship, by the way, where the physical part is going to not be as important anymore. You start getting into your 80s together, guess what? It can be important, but maybe once a year. I'm joking with that because I have no idea yet. But it becomes less than once a week. It could be once a year. It could be once every 6 months. And it could be, hey, if we do that, we'll break our hips. So our intimacy is different. Can you have sexual intimacy without being physically sexual? Yeah, that energy exists. But you don't give that to people that are not your partner in life. So there you go. Oh, I got guys waiting here. Hold on. Here's Niall. Niall, how you doing, brother?
Great to see you, Scotty.
Good to have you. Great to see you.
Very happy. I'm really enjoying tonight's show.
Oh, fantastic.
I think it's absolutely food for thought. And
a lot of food for thought.
From a male point of view, it was very interesting for me to hear. And before we get started, I'm sure hopefully some of the people will join us. But talking about male urges towards sexual, conduct, it's a very generalized kind of thing. Men are actually a lot more sensitive than men
I
ourselves
think a
give
lot more emotional
credit
at
for.
times.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, right? Of somebody I had sex with yesterday, but didn't have sex with, right? Yesterday I was getting a bus from where I live to another town. Okay. And it was an extremely stormy day.
Okay.
Um, and I had this huge umbrella, and I went out and I says, "Well, will I travel today or won't I?" You know, I was halfway up the road, and the umbrella was like, you know when you have a big umbrella and you're holding
Yep.
it from both sides, and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I might as well go
Yeah.
home. But I made it to the bus stop, and this particular bus stop had no covering over it. So I
Sure.
was literally standing by the side of the road, and I was getting like hammered with rain and wind, hammered, like, and I was literally
Nice.
down this, holding this umbrella. And the next thing, this little petite figure came around me, right? And her umbrella was gone, and it was like flapping inside out, right? And next thing, it flew out of her hand.
Oh no.
And I said, "Listen, come over here. I'm trying to hold on to this." And she was this Chinese girl, and she was like, "Oh, thank you." Her English was not very good. I said, "Thank you." So both of us kind of sheltered under my umbrella. In this intimate moment, we started to speak to each other, and she says, "Oh yeah, I'm going Dublin. Yeah, you going Dublin? Yeah, yeah." Yeah, you live here? Oh yeah, yeah. You're a nice man. Yeah, 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 yeah. We stay safe here. Yeah, the rain come down, and
Right.
that intimacy was profound to me. It was like, and in fact, I became like a child. I almost didn't want the bus to arrive, even though
Yeah.
it was storming down. I was just, and she was really uh, my kind of girl. She was dressed in.
You know
She was
what that
dressed in.
is.
She was dressed in boots that I like. She was dressed in these cool jeans with this long silken hair. It was just like, I really would like to get to know this woman.
You know what that
You
is,
know,
Niall? That's you. That's that natural desire in you. Do you know what that did when you were able to offer her the shared protection of your umbrella, and
mhm,
she came and grabbed onto that umbrella along with you to keep it from blowing away,
mhm.
and you're both kind of sheltering each other at that point? You don't even know who this person is, and yet
Yes,
it struck an intimate chord within you, because that is such a perfect picture of what people who are intimate with each other do. They protect each other, they share with each other, they're in common with each other. You didn't have to have sex with that person to realize this is somebody I just shared an intimate moment. And what happens when you notice she wears the kinds of boots I like. That's kind of cool. She's and all these other things start to fall in. I hope you got her
yeah.
number.
No, because what happened is it's been a long time since I've experienced something along those lines. But of course, the bus arrived on time, and it shouldn't have, because
Yeah,
I wanted to stay in the storm with her.
right.
And before she arrived, I was like, "Holy shit! I'm going to be standing here for half an hour." But as soon as she
Until
arrived, I was like, I can stand here all day with her,
yeah,
because she was asking me questions. Her English was not very good, but she was smiling at me, and she was like, it was like all of a sudden she trusted me, in this storm. It was like such a beautiful sensation. So the bus arrived, and I was like, "Yeah, oh, it's here," and you know, I thought there was no way I could sit down beside her, even though every fiber of my being was saying it wasn't that full, the bus.
yeah,
So I was saying, sit down beside her. But, that can be easily misinterpreted, like, or
sure.
assumed. So I didn't. I went to my own seat, and she went to her own seat. And I was looking at her. Will I go over and talk to her some more? And maybe that was just some fantasy in my head that's kind of played out now, or whatever it was. And but I've been thinking about her ever since. I'll never see this girl again in my life. But to me, getting back to the point of sex, that's probably the best sex that you could ever have, is that intimacy.
Yeah.
It's like an intimate kind of connection, and
Yeah. And
I wanted to
it's the risk of vulnerability at the
yes,
same time.
exactly. And it's like an automatic trust. You look at somebody, and the funny thing is, when a lot of stuff is context. When she
Mhm.
came around, she couldn't see my face because I had this massive big black umbrella. But she came around and she took a step back because she didn't realize I had long hair, and it was all flapping in the wind and stuff like that. And she was like, "Hey," but automatically we were like intimate, and it was just like fascinating to me,
Yeah.
and extremely beautiful. I can't stop thinking about her. I know I'll never see her again, and I was thinking, I certainly can't sit beside her on the bus. That's just too much. That's a step too far. Especially in a bus situation, you just have to take your
Maybe
own seat.
maybe the beauty
Yeah.
will be the next time you see her, you'll run that risk of being vulnerable and sit closer. Go, hey,
Well,
I remember you.
I
Remember the
hope.
umbrella?
Yeah, I hope I
You
ever
know?
see her. I hope I see her again one day, because she was the most beautiful, beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. It was just extraordinary, and the rain was just I forgot all about the storm. I was just like keeping us both safe, and she was smiling. I mean, her hair was shiny, and she looked great, and she smelled great, and she was just there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm 55. I mean, if I was 25 or 35, I might have had more bravery to kind of take a chance. She was
Sure.
a hell of a lot younger than me. She was probably like maybe with Chinese women, it's hard to tell at times, but I would say she was probably 30 or so.
Yeah.
Uh, Very petite, just the kind of dressed in these clothes that are very attractive to me, and it was like perfect. And then all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
she was on the same bus as me, but I was like, you know, I can't, I can't have her. I can't
Yeah.
approach her, and so my urge with her was just like that intimacy was just incredibly sexual.
Hmm.
And I guess that's my point, Scotty. I think you know what I mean. It was
I know
incredibly
exactly what you mean.
sexual, and
I
yeah.
met Rainey when I was 43 and she was 23, and a year passed before we got together.
Mm.
I was 44 and she was 24. And because you mentioned you're 55, you pictured her being about 30. I think when connection happens. Um, and it doesn't always count on age, although our society tells us you better be of the same age group or you're going to have problems. I'm definitely going to die before Rainey unless something unnatural happens. If we live natural lives, I'll die before Rainey. And will I leave her bereft? Will I leave her relieved? And she's like, oh, great. I'm 72 now, and now I can, now I'm free to do whatever I want. I can travel now, now that I'm 72. Should I live to be 92?
Yeah.
So, I predict I'm going to live to 104. So, she'll be 84 when I die. But
Well, you never know, Scotty. I mean, you can't.
yeah,
Who knows?
I could die tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I don't have a will. So I've been thinking about that since Uncle Dave died. I'm thinking about I need a will. I need to put a will together.
Oh man.
And
You
and I
need to
haven't done
you
that
need
yet.
to think about that shit.
I do.
Especially with all your kids and stuff. Oh,
My
Jesus.
will right now consists of one letter that says one sentence. My wife is in charge of everything I own now that I'm dead.
Yeah, but
And now I gotta figure out how it's gonna work. I gotta do a will, a
the only
legal will.
problem is if she dies before you do, or vice versa, or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that kind of makes it
Yeah.
null and irrelevant. But but getting
I
back
like
to the
holding
point,
hands too,
I
Anita
think that
Palmer. She just said,
I think
Anita
it's
said in the chat room, my husband and I are great
yeah,
hand holders. Well, Rainey and I hold hands when we're driving places. I
yeah,
enjoy holding hands with my wife.
and I think men in general, I'm trying to stick to the point of the show. I think men in general, that there is this perception, and you often, you know, Scotty, give off that projection that men are kind of victims of their own urges, which
Nah.
is not exactly true. Not most men, but a lot of men are not victims to their urges. The kind of men, like, for example, I would never, in my entire life, I've never considered going with a prostitute because I
Oh,
wasn't getting it
yeah.
at home or anything like that.
But
You know,
where I say
uh,
that men are
oh,
victims of their urges, it's not that they are victims. They're not bound to their urges, but their urges are generally the reason they victimize themselves when they follow urges that they ought not follow. So
yes,
that's what I would mean when I say
yes,
a
yes,
man is a victim to his urges. And I've never quite put it that way, but I've stated that in other ways. It's when a man does
yes.
the stuff he doesn't think about ahead of time and makes mistakes, and
Yeah,
then we
yeah,
become
and some
victims
of the
of our
stuff,
own nonsense.
yeah,
So,
and some of the stuff that you read out tonight was great. It's like I'm always suspicious of anybody who writes a book about the differences between men and women
oh
because
yeah,
there's about 5 million of them out there,
yeah,
and all they do is kind of divide men and women. To be honest, because they set up, men think this way, women think that way, and that is true to a certain extent, but it can be overanalyzed,
sure.
and my point is, when it comes to sex as an act, now, there are people who feel that no, you're totally wrong, or there's something wrong with you, or sex is it as an act, it's overrated unless it's connected, unless it has
It
a
can be.
context.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, it turns into something that you're slightly kind of ashamed of in a way. It's like, what was that girl's name?
Right, right.
I shouldn't have really done that.
I think
Uh,
sex without affection is something that can do that. I think sex with affection is now I've had sex with women that I didn't have any affection for, and it didn't last but a day, and that was very few and far between. Although I've had my share of sex in my day. Uh, but I generally would always thought of myself as being somebody who I had sex with somebody because I liked them or I cared about them. And I think I may have said this on Wendy and Val's show yesterday. And always was in the back of my head, if I'm going to intimately strip this woman's clothing off and have intimate, close skin on skin physical relationship with her, I probably want to like her first.
Yeah.
There's going to be something that draws me to that person. Not just hopefully, hope to God, not just a physical thing. And I try to think in my head. I can't even think of the people I just went, I'm hopping into bed because she asked me to.
What's the old
And I'm
saying,
drawn to
Scotty?
her physically. What's that?
What's the old saying? Beauty fades, stupid is forever.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, But
And
I was
I mean,
thinking, you can make a whole series out of this between Wicked
Oh, sure.
Women, your show,
sure.
and Robertson tomorrow.
Yep.
Because this is the subject, and this is something that a lot of men suffer with, is the intimate connection, especially with different things.
Sure.
But like I said, yeah, and like I said, I missed part of it. I've been working on the truck again. But I thought, it's 10 o'clock. somebody should be on. And I'm like, oh wow. Then when it popped on the TV, it's like, here comes the Starship. But no, and men like myself, a lot of times we had a lot of our sensitivity and stuff behind a persona, because you don't want to feel vulnerable. You don't want to put it out there.
Right.
Because society has told us over the years, men are this way, and you have to carry yourself this way. And I don't know how it is in Niles country or whatever, And in different cultures, men are seen in different light. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk to Wendy about this, whatever, because a lot of people, forget, she's a licensed counselor. A lot of times, it's like,
Right.
well, why do you think this for? And it's like, and she'll tell me, hey, Michael, you look uncomfortable. I was like, well, I am uncomfortable. It just ain't looking. I am uncomfortable with this. And but like I said, oh, there's Valerie. Hi, Valerie. And I said, wicked women bring the guys in. And I think instead of causing a divide, that builds a bridge so people can help understand, because we do come from different places.
Sure.
I've always said, women are nesters. A woman wants to fix her nest. That's the reason I think women are so much neater in housekeeping. They want their nest to be the best looking nest they got. And a guy's a fixer. The world's coming in. Let me build you a deck. Let me fix something for you. Same way like him with the umbrella.
Sure. And we're not saying that women should be the only ones that clean a house, but women are better at nesting their house than a guy is. A guy doesn't normally think of those things.
No, I don't.
In general, it's a generality. Let me switch something up here. Sarah asked a question a while ago. As a guy, what would you consider the ultimate types of intimacy aside from sex? Sarah asked. What do you think, Niall?
Well,
what do you think?
I actually think it's the potential of sex, or the intimacy. If it is true intimacy and connection, the potential of a sexual union is what drives the intimacy. It drives you to get honest with each other. It drives the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It drives everything. I'm not sure whether that's what she was getting at, but I think it's, intimacy outside sex would be, just pure connection and conversation. It's just like good fun and being comfortable. All these barriers break down. It's like, I'm a man, or I'm an older man, you're a younger woman, we shouldn't be doing this, or blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you discover things in common. And that's an act of sex in itself, or communion,
Yep.
So, I mean, the intimacy is very important. I think it becomes more important the older you get. Companionship probably comes first. Like, there's one statistic which has been proven true. I'm not sure who wrote it, but it is extremely true. Like, most people, men and women, have probably one really, really, really intense sexual relationship in their lives, right? Maybe two if they're lucky. I'm talking about the type of sex where you can't keep your hands off each other for 2 years, right? And sex. But those are the kind of relationships that would fail.
Days.
Yeah, but we all remember those. Do you remember that girl I knew? We think of it in our head sometimes. We have to have sex 5 times a day, and it seems like, wow, this is the girl. I love her so much. We have sex all the time. And it turns out she's the one who dumped you, or you dumped her, and it didn't last very long, But in general, the scientific or pseudo-scientific viewpoint seems to be that we only have that type of intense sexual relationship probably once in our lives that lasts with that intensity over, an extended period. Because if you have that intense sexual connection that you're just having sex all the time, there's lots of other stuff that's not going to happen. You're not going to connect emotionally. You're not going to get to know each other. You're not going to get to know each other's habits and formations because it's all based around the sex.
It's more of a physical connection other than emotional connection.
And I think that's a reason that that kind of connection only happens about once or twice, in a lifetime, because people shouldn't be like that, just having sex, because because you don't get to know the real person, So sex is, to me, it's about a communion of sorts. It's about an instant connection. Like I was telling you about the umbrella with the girl. I mean, I had sex with her. I was like, in my head, that was a sexual communion, as much as an intimate one.
I get it.
And it was just profound. Yeah. So I'm not sure. That probably didn't answer Sarah's question, but yeah.
She's here, by the way, now. I didn't see you there right away, Sarah, but now you're in
That's
here.
all right. Hey, guys.
Welcome. It's been a while.
Yeah.
You've been away.
She's been on hiatus.
Yeah, sure.
Were you on vacation?
Yeah, a little bit, and just been busy with various things. So, but I just thought I'd pop in and put a more feminine perspective on. So I was like, during the show, I was like, oh, I want to get on and just talk it out. But
why don't you answer that question? What?
Yeah.
Your question was scrolled off of here. What would you consider the ultimate types of intimacy aside from sex?
I wouldn't know, but either way, I'm probably the person who's has the least amount of experience in that area. So, yeah.
Well,
so, but I mean, I'm not, but but I think what we've kind of touched upon a lot, is again we are talking about intimacy and how perception is, and especially I think you wanted to talk about especially perceptions of men and into intimacy, because there's the general, that gross generalization how men are supposed to be, like men are not, like men can't be tender, men can't cry, which is not true. Men require just as much as intimacy as women does. It's just a matter of lining things up. It's like bedded women are their own Venn diagram, and the places where they meet is where you have connection and definitely certain types of intimacy. And certainly, and you were talking earlier about age, that's certainly a factor. It definitely is for women. Like women enter into different hormonal states. They enter menopause. They may feel less desire to have physical intimacy at certain levels, but I mean even there's statistics saying the opposite. I mean, just looking at the rate of STDs in nursing home rates, I mean, you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, that's what I said last night in Florida.
Yeah,
they had the highest STD per capita in people over 65 anywhere in the country
in nursing homes. Yeah.
I mean,
that's crazy.
That reminded me of a story that my mom, when my grandfather was in a nursing home, she called me and she's like, "You need to come get your grandfather." I was like, "Why?" "He's in the sunroom." "Well, okay, he's in the sunroom. He's not alone." I'm like, "Well, who's he with?" "Oh, he's down there with with the lady's name, which he's passed and she's probably passed." Being a gentleman, I'm not going to say her name. And I said, "All right, so all the staff of the nursing home, my mom worked there. There's all distraught because these two old people was having sex in the sunroom." So she's like, "I'll call Michael." So I walked down this long hall, opened the doors. I said, "Papa, what are you doing?" He said, "If you don't know, boy, I'd be checking them kids' DNA." I'm like, "Do what?" I said, "You got to stop." He said, "Would I interrupt you if you was doing this?" I was like, "Probably not." He said, "Well, you can leave now." And so I just turned around and left. I was like, "Okay,
grandson."
He's like, slow your roll. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't interrupt you. I walked back out, and here's the nurse standing there, my mom and the other CNAs and stuff. You know, they had an audience. And my mom was like, "Where's your grandfather?" I said, "Well, he told me to tell you to fuck off. He'd be out when he's done." And she's like, "Well, you need to go get him." I said, "I can't." She said, "Why can't you?" I said, "He enacted a bro code." I said, "Y'all are on your own. I'm going back home." I said,
and you know, frankly, they're probably old enough to figure out what they're doing.
That's what I said, you know. But they's like, "Oh, but he's 84 years old or something," and I'm like, he still knows what.
Good for him. He's a good guy.
There you go. He can still father children.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, get it in and make them grin, right?
Well, I mean, that just goes to show there's, you know, way big difference in culture too. I mean, not just even if you go further back. I mean, nowadays you don't have much in terms of courtship. No. You know, it was all back in the olden days. You know, in Victorians and earlier. I mean, you would have to go through this entire, you know, highly expensive. Not just financially, but I mean emotionally expensive of figuring out that you like each other, then getting married, and then, you know, doing the deed. As far
what is it if you spent the night, because they had to travel on horses, and if you spent the night at a lady's house, they would sew you in the sheet or in the bed so you could not
bundling bags.
And they used to put boards in between people and stuff.
And I always thought, what if you had to go pee after you got sewed in the quilt? But on the same hand, I tell that story about my grandfather, but he was with my grandmother for 65 years.
Wow.
There you go.
You know, and I always wondered why they had 2 bedrooms, but she had like 18 kids. She was probably tired of his ass. After 18 kids, she's like, "Hey, you sleep over there, I'll be over here." But I remember, you know, he very much loved my grandmother. 18 kids. Yeah. Jeez. And but growing up, I always thought, you know, why does my mama all sleep over here and my grandfather sleep over here for her? Then, you know, they talking about all these kids. And when I got older, I'm thinking, no, she's probably wore the fuck out. She's like, "Nope, you stay over there. You do you, I'll do me. We've had our fun." But they was still like intimate. You know, it was more of a bond. You know, it was.
Yeah, after birthing 18 kids, I can imagine it was her idea to have separate rooms.
Oh yeah, but like I said, you know, but I could tell, you know, when she, you know, he was distraught when she passed away, you know, because, you know, that was, and I remember him telling me, I was young, he's like, "There goes the best part of me. There goes the best part of me." And I'm like, you know, now that I'm 51 and not 13, you know, I look back and I think about it now and I'm thinking, holy shit, you know, for an old hard rock coal miner that was just mean as hell. For
right, Valerie?
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. You know, I mean, 18 children, 18, like 1/8.
Yep.
I mean, that's like 2 shy of 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, the oldest is going to be graduating from high school when she's giving birth to the last one.
Yeah. But Sarah touched on something about courtship. And Sarah, I wanted to bring that up as well because it kind of struck a chord with me in the chat room. That the idea about courtship, the old-fashioned values that, they were kind of somehow false. We had this in this country as well. In fact, at some stage, you know, during the 1920s, you would have to have a guy who would approve the marriage, you know, or the courtship, and he would bring you on a pony and trap, you know, down this road, and you couldn't touch each other. You could speak.
It makes me think of the movie The Quiet Man.
The
Quiet Man. If you please, there'll be no patty fingers.
Yeah, but do you know what? It was like that at one stage. Yes. And you know, and the entire village would know about it, you know, and they'd all be holding back. But you know, there was no touching, which, you know, by today's standards, I would actually love to be put into that situation.
That would be, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, because I would turn around and start talking, you know. But but I think that both parties were so terrified by their position, put into that position, forced position, that they had nothing to say to each other. So chances are they had nothing to say to each other, as well.
Usually, I think it's the opposite. I mean, with especially with men and women, there's poetry saying about how, a woman's gaze could speak volumes to a man.
Oh yeah. But what I was thinking was, you have so much time invested that you just did not pick up and go away. Anymore, relationships come and go. I've seen people on Facebook that have found the love of their life 20 times this year already. And it's like, years ago, and I've always thought about this. It's no secret. I've been married and divorced a few times. And you just throw it away. But I tell people, what I always wanted was a marriage that lasted as long as my grandparents did. Was every day rosy with him? Probably not. But they worked on it. They worked on it. And after one of my divorces, I started thinking, I need to write a book and call it Disposable People, because you don't work on relationships anymore. Easy come, easy go. You got internet dating. Hey, if she rolls out today, I'll get on the dating site tomorrow. Load up another failed relationship, and it has been made so easy with that.
That's the thing. I think it's the ease of it. There was a young woman that at my 40th birthday party, which we threw a big shindig. There was about 150, 200 people in and out of the house, a lot of the festival people. And I was turning 40, and there was a young woman that was half my age. Yeah. She was out at the festival, absolutely beautiful by physical standards. And an object do desire for many guys. And my 40th birthday, she ended up staying late, staying overnight, slept together. And the next day, guess what? I was her soulmate. I was a soulmate for a few days, and then it just trailed off, and we never talked to each other again. But I was a soulmate instantly.
Yeah.
But then it died out, and she went somewhere else.
Two weeks later, she had a new soulmate.
I had a good friend of mine.
Yeah, but you never forgot her. You never forgot her.
I never forgot her. I had a good friend of mine that also had a relationship with her that said, "Oh, were you part of the Soulmate of the Week club?" He says, "I heard that you you went out with so and so," and I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Let me just ask you, buddy." He says, "Did you become part of the Soulmate of the Week club?" And I said, "That's a very good way to put it." He said, "I was a soulmate too."
That's pretty disheartening.
Oh, yeah, it was. No, but I don't speak that to her ill. I'm speaking more to the fact that we become a society, a culture where it's easy. It's give it and take it away.
What really gets me is, the demonization of a woman who does that.
Because, right. I don't demonize her.
No, I know you're not, but I'm just saying in general, because if a woman, is, dates not multiple guys at the same time, but I mean,
right,
is a serial dater, she's looked at it in a certain way for trying to find what she wants and, who's going to give her what she wants versus, if it was a guy, nobody would blink an eye.
Right.
Sir, I've actually that's true. Up on Valerie's show, and Valerie can contest to this. And I said one night, and a few things I've said almost broke the internet a few times because I speak frank. And if I've got all of my medication has made focus, I really speak frank. I said, if men can have multiple wives, why can't women have multiple husbands? Because I'm all about fair play, level playing field. You know what I'm saying? I don't care about no glass ceilings. And I said, why is it okay for men to have 40 wives and 80 concubines? Why can't a woman have 80 husbands or whatever?
Well, it used to be okay. And
yeah, I'm saying under biblical law, right? But it also says, if your brother dies, you take his wife and kids. That's your family. But that's another one. But I get it, And I say, in this day and time, if you're going to be so down the line and look down on one person for doing it, people are people. You know what I'm saying? Male or female, you're still a person. You're still flesh and blood. So why is it okay for a man to do this and not a woman? And it reminds me, talking about The Quiet Man. There was another, I think this was a Clint Eastwood movie where the woman had two husbands, like Paint Your Wagon or something. And that was so scandalous that in Hollywood at the time, because they said, oh, you cannot portray a woman with two men. We don't want to put no ideals in her head, And I'm thinking, how ass backwards is that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, back in the those types of days, everything we used to run patrilinearly, as far as who's going to be head of the family, who's going to inherit, that just kind of muddies the water.
It was a legal contract.
Yeah.
It was. And
but the other thing is, about equality between having multiple wives. I mean, which, people said, oh, he has 2-3 wives or, whatever. If they actually, look at different cultures, there are contentions saying that, okay, you can have a wife, you can have more than one wife, but you have to treat everything has to be equal in affection, equal in finances, everything has to be split down the middle. And for most people, men especially, they can't treat in their hearts, they can't treat, two people equal like that when it comes in terms of love, right? I mean,
that would be a difficult task, I think, for anyone.
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
There's a ton of stuff you're after offloading. There's a ton of stuff that I want to bring, say to Sarah. Sarah's opinion of men is extremely low. This is 2023. Men don't go to clubs and it's accepted that they sleep with X amount of women every night. Men, if you do that these days, you would probably be accused of rape, or you'd be accused of something horrendous. Men don't want to do that. So men are not encouraged to, if a man is, I slept with her last night, I'm going to sleep with her. And that's a sign of the times in a lot of different ways. Men are a lot more intelligent than Sarah gives them credit for. And
no, you're putting words in my mouth now. I did not say that at all.
Yeah, but you kind of a generalization. You kind of.
I mean, I can generalize people who are in their 20s, but I mean, people who are actually,
popcorn.
Men are very sensitive, as much as women.
That's what I said in the beginning.
That you said something about a girl is looked on as a bit of a slut, if she sleeps around. These days, that doesn't mean anything. Men, if a girl says, or even if you're of the age, that you're hanging around with a bunch of friends, she sleeps with him and he sleeps with her or whatever, that doesn't mean anything anymore. And to me, that's a very healthy progression, from humanity, because these days the last thing we need is to look at women and look at men in terms of their sexual conquests and frame them in that way, and in a lot of ways, I'm a big fan of, the LGBTQ community for kind of the confusion that, that they've caused within sexuality, because they've done away with that kind of I'm the guy and you're the girl kind of dynamic, and they've kind of muddied the waters to such an extent that it's like, yeah, I can be as promiscuous as I want, or if I choose not to have sex, I will do so. So all those stereotypes and generalizations are kind of moot at this point, So I'm sorry, Sarah, if I came across as a bit assertive about that. But I think it's important.
Definitely not assertive. I mean, offensive, yeah, but not assertive.
Well, you've always thought I was offensive, from word go. But I didn't mean to be offensive. But my point is that those stereotypes don't really exist anymore, unless you're really in Hicksville, or you're really in places that there's no respect for either sex, So.
Well, you could say we become slightly more enlightened in our culture.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I wouldn't use the word enlightened. Educated, which doesn't always mean enlightened. For me,
I said just
I
because
kind of like the old way of doing things. I didn't always stick to it, but I was not as bad as some, because I put up a picture of Rainey not long ago, an old picture of the first year we were dating. And I was sitting about like this. It was a picture taken on the webcam on my computer. And I was kind of looking down, and she's sitting behind me, and she's fixing the bun in her hair, and she's just smiling at me from kind of behind me. And it made me think of that, L is for the way you look at me. And that's what I liked about that. It's the fact that she looked at me and lit up. I looked at her and lit up. That's what that was all about for me. That's all I wanted. And after that point, I didn't want anything else.
Which, we have progressed a lot from the time we've crawled out of the swamps into the cave.
Sure.
As people. And yesterday I meant to say it on Wicked Women. Just because a woman pays for my dinner don't mean I'm going to put out. I'm a gentleman. You know what I'm saying? Because one of the women said, just because they pay for your meal, they expect this. But but a true Southern gentleman,
I would pay for a woman's dinner a lot, and I didn't expect sex in return.
And that's it. And I actually had a lady tell me, she said, Michael, we need to go out. I told her, I said, right now, I said, ain't no deposits in. I said, I'll get with you. I said, I can't pay for dinner, so we're not going out. And I'm not talking about McDonald's. I'm talking about like a good sit down dinner. She's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm a physical therapist. I make plenty of money. I said, my ancestors would come out of their grave and get me if I sat down at a sit down restaurant and let a woman pay for my meal.
See, I think that's bullshit, personally. I think that's where we've gotten in society. If a woman wanted to take me out for a date and said, I'm buying,
but
I wouldn't go, no, I can't go out with you because I'm a man and a man is supposed to buy the dinner. Dude, that's, to me,
too old fashioned.
That's bullshit. If a woman wants to do that, okay. And you know what? Next time I'll get it. Yeah. Or you buy dinner, I'm gonna bring you a book.
Is it? Yeah. What is it?
I think it's about who's putting forth the intention, right?
Yeah.
Because whoever puts the intention out first is in control, has the power.
Sure.
Right?
And
I don't buy that.
You don't buy that. Scotty's
that might be an expectation, but I don't buy it.
I mean, intention is different than expectation.
Yeah, I think one of the best things you can say to anybody you're going out on a date with, I once arrived, with $5 in my pocket, and I met somebody in a 5-star hotel, mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not going to pull this off, I'm not going to pull this off. Yeah. So the first thing, and she was all dressed up, sitting at the bar. And I said, how did I get to this point where I have $5 in my pocket? And she's dressed up to, I'm supposed to pay for dinner and I have $5. So the first thing I said, listen, I have something to tell you. I have no money.
They tell them to dine and dash.
And I'm really sorry. It took me to the counter of a 5-star hotel to say that to you. But I was too embarrassed to say it to before now. And I was hoping by some kind of miracle, I might meet a friend, might loan me some money or whatever. But the thing is, I really like you, and I'm really sorry, and I'm very embarrassed. And, if you walk out right now, I think it would probably be the best thing, because obviously I'm a waste of space. And you know what? That honesty, she was like, I ended up marrying that woman. Because she was like, no problem. I have plenty of money. Yeah. I think it was a stupid thing you did, Niall. She said, it was the first thing she said. You should have been honest with me and said you had no money. She actually said to me, were you thinking about this all week? Because the date was planned for a
Yes.
week. And I said, yeah, because I had no money and I pretended I had money. Because I was trying to act the big shot when we met in the nightclub. And I was like,
sure.
Don't worry, we'll meet next week at this hotel. Me being me, you think I would have said, we'll meet in a local bar. No, we had to meet in a swanky hotel,
Sure.
And by the time the date rolled around, I hadn't a bean in my pocket,
Yeah.
And me being a stupid man, how am I going to pull this off? And I couldn't get loan. I couldn't get any friends to help me out. And so I was forced into just being honest with her, and instead of freaking out and slapping me across the face, she was like, that's okay. You should have told me that,
What's at the core of
But, I mean,
making?
believe it or not, women like honesty. I mean, otherwise, if you're going to put up a farce, then you're going to have to put up that farce throughout the entire relationship.
but-
I
and
was
it's
gonna say, what's at the
draining.
core of being dishonest about something like that? It's our own insecurity.
Yeah.
It's our own doubt.
I mean, by the way, I'm going back into my 20s when I did that. But, again, there was that, I can't admit to this woman that, I have no money, because I'll be a loser, if I admit that to her. But at the same time, you're kind of perpetuating a lie. So, instead of meeting in a bar, I met in a 5-star hotel. I mean, how stupid is that for a guy who has no money, arranges to meet a date in a 5-star hotel?
Right.
Where even the popcorn that you're eating right now is worth $5. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
I was going to ask you, did you see the comment that Valerie put? Can you imagine?
I did.
Can you imagine the mansplaining that would happen with 80 husbands? Good grief.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that. And I'm like,
yeah. But by the way, Sarah, if you don't mind, I'd like to do this live on air right now, because there's a couple of things that I want to clear up the air with.
Here we go.
Okay.
Right.
He's proposing.
Oh,
Hey, I can
no,
appreciate.
no, it's cool. It's cool. I know that you've always disliked me, Sarah.
have I ever said I disliked you?
No, but you've always found me.
So you assume that I dislike you, even though I've never said.
This find
this
me
is the core of what happens between men and women.
Hang on. Can I finish?
Go ahead.
I've always got the impression then that you dislike me. You actually said to me that you find me offensive. So I'd like to know exactly why you find me offensive, because as far as I know, I've never said anything to insult you. Maybe I've said things that you don't agree with or something like that. But there's always been a barrier between you and I that I don't like, because I actually like you and I like your input. But I've always got the impression that, this guy from Ireland is just, I've always got that impression, So, I'm sorry if I have offended you in the past. I suppose is what I'm trying to say to you. And I hope we can be friends in the future, So I would like this barrier. I know that Scotty notices there is some kind of division between you and I.
I've seen it in conversation. I haven't ever assumed that there was anything deeper than conversational division.
Yeah.
Like I say, ladies and gentlemen, is this a love connection? We'll be back in 2 and 2.
I certainly don't dislike Sarah in any way, and that's official. So
Hey, I can officiate in the state of Virginia. I'm ordained.
Me too.
Yeah. Hey, Scotty, be your best man. I put on the preacher's hat. Yeah. We put some flyers around the dog's neck. I had to get on my laptop. Yeah, send me a message today.
But getting back to, I suppose, maybe I talk too much. Maybe that's the problem. I mean, men and women, I love to be around women. I love women's company because they're much more insightful than men. They're far more intelligent than men. You know that great expression that
I don't know about that.
Well,
expressed differently than men.
Men are stupid and women are neurotic. That's
men are buffaloes, women are butterflies.
Yeah. It is, there's lots of generalizations, but I think that men and women generally are probably incompatible until they make themselves compatible. There's lots of barriers that women and men put up against themselves. I think these days, I was saying a bit about this earlier on, I actually like the modern environment because, it's much more sort of open sexually, and it's much more, you know, if you're conservative like you, Scotty, you don't agree with it. I understand that, and it's not
I'm
something
pretty
that
amiable, I
you,
think,
yeah,
but
you
I am
are
opinionated.
amiable. Yeah, and but it's not something you're entirely comfortable with. Personally, I think it's a very positive development, because this is the world that we live in. You know, that there are people out there who feel this way. Now, do I think that you should be teaching your kids this when they're very young? No, but I think that
I have to teach my kids to live in the world,
yeah,
and the world changes,
yeah.
and so
You know,
I
me and
teach
Scotty.
them principles, but then I teach them how to live as best I can, and then
You know-
they figure out the rest just like we all did when we were out on our own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me and Scotty's
So-
had this conversation before, because he does have younger children. But I got lucky. My kids are grown, and I'm only 50. You know what I'm saying? So my kids are out doing their own thing. But I would be terrified to try to raise kids in this environment and prepare them for all of the things that are coming.
Oh yeah,
Because like you said,
You can't, Michael. You can't, because it's kind of out of your hands in a way. I mean,
even now-
my daughter is. I'll be honest with you. My daughter is 25 years old, and she's an activist, really activist in the LGBTQ.
like I said, I
environment.
promised you something, and I spoke to my daughter,
Yeah.
but we're dealing with my dad's health issues right now, and she's like his conservator, or whatever you call it, power of attorney. But I'm still going to figure out what the Q plus means. I will ask her, because like I said,
I've asked my daughter what it means, and she has no clue. The thing is, I laughed about this. I said I get the LGBT, but the Q thing is like
Q is
obviously
queer. I think.
yeah,
is
but
what it stands
but
for.
queer was always
Yeah.
a euphemism for gay.
yeah,
Right.
But apparently, if you're queer, you have tendencies towards you're straight, but you have feminine qualities. So you're kind of queer. You all
Beats the
right?
hell out of me.
I thought
Yeah.
that was metrosexual.
Yeah, but then it goes on. LGBTQ whatever I is plus. I asked Shelley, my daughter, about what does I mean. She says I have no idea. I think that just
Sarah, I'm going to go out on a limb here based on many things you've said before, because I've never asked you. I'm assuming you don't have kids. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you feel about having to raise a kid in the cultural environment that we have now?
Now, I mean, it would depend on the man I would be with in a relationship with.
Okay.
So, I mean, if I was in a stable, loving, protective relationship, I would be relatively okay. I mean, we're fairly conservative, and even to the point of being sheltered a little bit.
Sure.
But I mean, that's just being part of being a parent and stuff. You have to teach your kids what's out there, and how, if you come across something, how to deal with it in
Now,
any type of
is some of that
situation.
your Muslimism, your Islamism,
Muslim-
Islamic side? I don't know what to call it exactly, but whoops. Oh, that was an accident. Hold on.
Too much
Oh, I
popcorn.
guess Sarah just didn't want to answer us. She left.
No, I'm right here.
No, I accidentally hit the button.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I mean, as I get older, I'm finding out that half the stuff that I've been raised in, it's either half of it's being Muslim and the half of it my parents are crazy. So I'm trying to figure out which half is which.
Same thing Methodists go through, I think.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like the alcohol thing. I mean, because in Islam, they are usually against alcohol because of the effects that it has on the mind, and everything in moderation, that sort of thing. So anything that would put you out of that is, not considered, not permissible. I mean, you can, but you're not supposed to. It's like, what do you call it? Minor sin or whatever. But
I know we wasn't allowed to drink in country. It was an alcohol-free, sex-free zone.
Right.
For
Dry campus.
Dance free, movie free.
Oh yeah,
Like
alcohol
Footloose.
free.
everything that was fighting for was not allowed to do in country,
Mhm.
which I thought was very disheartening for morale.
Right.
But no,
That's what we
Valley
said.
State,
Everything that was fun to do, you couldn't do.
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Your
yeah.
question, is this out of God's will? Well, is it fun? Yeah, it's out of God's will.
About like the doctor, when you got a health problem, well, if it tastes good, spit it out. It's no good for you.
Right, right.
But sometimes people say, oh, they don't like me because they have a different opinion or they have a spirited debate. And a lot of times, I'm pretty conservative, but I have other values too. Me and Scotty talked about it.
Sure.
Like I said, I've marched into parade with my daughter, and Scotty's like, I couldn't do that.
Hey, Jeremy Henson.
Me and Scotty's still buddies. You know what I'm saying? But that's I
If
did.
somebody
have
wants to be
difference of
gay,
opinion, difference of
LGBTQ, I'm
That's
fine with
politics,
that.
and still get along.
that's a great point, Michael. I've been friends with Scotty for how long now? 4 or 5 years or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
We are polar opposites.
Yeah. And
when it comes to
Now, I'm
You
not
know-
hostile against LGBTQ people
no,
at all.
No.
I'm
No.
a more power to you. You can do whatever you want. If you're an adult, you got the freedom to do what you want as an adult.
the
That's up
thing
to you.
is, you can
It's
be
not
polar
something I would promote, though. So-
No, but I just did, but you don't have a
Right.
problem with me doing that,
No.
and that's why I like Scotty, even though he might be polar opposites in viewpoints on certain things. Who cares?
Now, if you voted for Joe Biden, maybe I'd
but-
change that.
It depends,
It's a political joke.
because all of these opinions and stuff like that are not the man that I see. The man that I
Yeah.
see is the guy I like.
I'm
So
glad.
he can be as right wing as he wants to. That doesn't form my opinion of him. My opinion
There
of
you
him
go.
is very high. And that's why I've stuck
Oh,
around for
I was trying to
a hell of a long time.
I was trying to do a shameless plug for you for
I
your
can't
book.
see what that is exactly. Oh, one of my business cards.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
there
trying
you
to
go.
do a shameless
Yeah.
plug for you there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Before
Even
YouTube takes it down.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, my bad. Oh, I should have done this. You need to order your book.
There
Order
you
your
go.
book. Hey,
I read it inside out. It's not his best work, but it's okay.
It's not my
It's okay.
best work. No,
No,
it was fun. It's still got
Yeah.
long legs with my publisher, which is nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just got a
I think
royalty check,
I
so
think
that
you
helps.
need to expand the edition, and to kind of update
They've been
it.
trying for 4 years to get me to write the second edition of that.
my next investment for my library with Scotty Roberts and stuff is going to be Tam O'Hare or Sword in the Clay. Because I talked to Scotty the other day. I was like, I need to go ahead and order one of these. But no, like I said,
Tam O'Hare, Sword in the Clay. They're both good.
Yeah.
The archaeology one's coming out soon.
Yeah,
So-
I need it. And I got my psychology books that I'm getting sent to me that I bought secondhand. Because I figure if you're going to practice it, you might as well have your book so you look smart behind you. Not
Is
just
it going to be ready for before Christmas or?
I think so. I can't call him my partner anymore because I bailed out of the company 3-4 years ago, but he is publishing it, and we were trying to find a good way to publish. He said, "I'm just going to send it through China," he says, and get a better price.
self-published.
And he says, and that's really, frankly, that is one of the best places to go if you want publishing. If you want to be all American, I only do American, you're going to pay 3 times as much for your product.
Oh, yeah.
So
Everything is.
if you want to, Yeah.
But that's very confusing because when it comes to publishing, Scotty, I was speaking to a famous, through my artwork, I work with a lot of bands. You know that. And there's a very famous rock journalist called Martin Popoff from Canada, from Toronto. And some of his books, he's written about 30 books on famous rock stars. Very good books, very well researched because he traveled with all the rock stars. And he was like, "Yeah, I have a book on Rainbow and Thin Lizzy and Black Sabbath and that kind of stuff. I got them from Amazon." And then I wanted a book on Ronnie James Dio, and he was like, well, you have to order from me directly because I cut off my relationship with the English publishers. So therefore, I can only publish in Australia and New Zealand and North America. And I'm like, what? So if I have to send to mainland Europe, it's going to cost a fortune. So I'll send you a link if you want that book. And it was like something like $59.99 plus postage. So, but
Sure.
for a book, it would like the guts of €80, for a book.
Yeah.
And I said, Martin, that's ridiculous. The last book I bought for you was €15. And he was like, I have no control over this. They told me to publish it in a certain, location. But that's because they want to, reap all the rewards of the publishing, whatever the publishing. You didn't read the fine print. And he was like, yeah, but you can still buy it to my website. Yeah, great, but it's going to cost me. I mean, how many European? This is a European rock journalist, right? Who appeals to mostly European people, and you have to buy. If you buy from his website, it will cost you $80 to get a paperback book.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have no control. But then I said to him, why did you break up your relationship with the English publishers? Well, because somebody told me to do that because I'd earned more money, promote appealing to the American, because the population is, it's backfired on him because most of the Americans had never heard of the bands that he's writing about, and they're not spending money, and he's like, shit, publishing deals are complex, and you need to go into them, with an open eye, and you need to, above all, you need to know your target audience pretty well.
Yep. And for me, I am doing like Sword in the Clay. I self-published that, but it was funded by a guy that has Manitou Free Traders Press. But we treated it like a self-published book. It was a print-on-demand book. And because we published that through KDP, Kindle, we had to, if we wanted to make a penny on that book, we had to put about a $30 cover price on it. But that's also a hardback book. So we thought, we can get away with that. Tam O'Hare, on the other hand, 5-6 years ago, I did the color edition of that. It had come out in black and white in 2008. All the paintings were done as grayscales by the publisher. They couldn't afford to print it in color. So I bought the rights and I re-released it in color. And I put a cover price of, I think, $29.95 on it, so $30. And I think I made something like 14 cents a book. But I didn't want to go over $30 because I wanted people to be able to get it. So I haven't made any money on Tam O'Hare since I went color. But
yeah, go ahead.
Did you try and do it digital for Kindle and all that stuff?
I didn't want to go digital.
Because people need the actual product.
Yeah, Sarah, I'm one of those that I like a hardcover book or
I do too, but I mean,
book in my hands.
Just to
I saw the way they laid out the digital. I did take it through digital, like Sword in the Clay. Took it through KDP's digital as well, and they didn't stick to any layout. It was just a white page with a picture slapped on it. And it's like, no, this will not do. Because I had text wrapped around pictures and things like that, and they didn't stick to that. So
this is a very interesting segue because this is one of the arguments that I had with Martin Popoff, because he keeps producing these super deluxe hardback editions of his favorite bands, right? It doesn't matter who the band is, right? And it's like, it's full of color pictures, coffee table size. And, he's kind of like, you could kill somebody with this book, right? So when it arrives in the post, It doesn't fit on any shelf.
Yeah.
It's huge. And my point to him was like, Martin, you're going about this the wrong way. First of all, your target audience is guys my age, 50-year-olds who have
Old money.
a lot of expendable income, right? So they can afford to buy this shit,
In theory.
Big hardback books, that nobody else in the family is interested in except for you,
Right.
And
We used to call them
why don't you put all of that money into producing a paperback version that would appeal to a wider audience?
Yep.
Oh well, nobody else will buy it. You'd be very surprised. The only reason
Jeremy Hansen, I
Yeah.
want to answer his question. He says, how many of my books are audiobooks? One. And that's The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim, the one that Michael's got. But my publisher, New Page Books, actually paid for that. They paid to have an audiobook prepared.
I didn't know an audiobook was an option. That could have saved me a lot of time at night.
Yeah, probably could have. I didn't even think about that.
No,
They also, my publisher did Nephilim in
Chinese or something.
Nephilim and the Reptilians book they did in, I think those were both Spanish. And then the Exodus Reality they released in Chinese.
Yeah.
So I don't know what
He's going to pull out his
version
book.
of Chinese. There you go, Niall.
Hey,
that one too.
Hey, at least we know Scotty sold 2 books, right?
Right.
Yes, there it is.
I had no idea you didn't audio this.
There is an audio book of that. It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
What is
And the guy
And,
actually does a really nice job. People thought it was me reading it. He's got a different voice. I can tell the difference, but
Yeah.
And, Jeremy, you said
this
something.
is a long time ago, 2011.
Yeah, that's
And,
when that came out.
I remember a few years ago saying to you, Scotty, what do you think of this now? And you're like,
He could use work.
I kind of want to rework it,
My
And I'm
publisher
like,
wants me to do a new version of that. And
so
not
how many times on this show do you have 2 people with the same copy of your book?
Not many.
No.
But my publisher said they want to do a second edition where he said, not a lot of work. He says maybe 1 new chapter and then update some things throughout the book.
Yes.
And I said, no, I should do that.
You
But,
should
you
do
know,
that.
I told Scotty, with the issues that I had, I'm rebuilding my bookshelf, and I told him on the phone. Told him, I said, brother, I said, I want your book to be the first one that I put in my bookshelf.
Well, thank you.
Because me and Scotty, have become friends, and I told him, I said, and the next book I want is the Reptilians, because I called him the other night. Well, I showed him, hey, I got the book. Then I called him. I told him, I said, what other books do you have on hand that you can, I'll pay the money. You just ship them to me. And he's good, and he's looking through, because my other book sat on the end of his desk, autographed or whatever you want to call it.
For like 4 months.
For like 4. When he's like, you got your book? I was like, no, he'll get it to me. I'll check on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Out of the 2 of us, she is more proactive than I am. She's like, how do you go through life so lackadaisical? I was like, it's easy. You just go away with the fairies, And
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it gets me in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But I want to build my Scotty Robinson selection of my library.
Well, Scotty, I'm going to leave you now because it's very late in Ireland.
Oh, right.
What, five hours ahead?
It's very early
for
in
your next
Ireland.
Yes,
for your
we
next
can.
project, revisit this book and dive into it.
That's what my
And
publisher
maybe-
wants me to do. They want me to revisit that.
Yes,
So
and because this book is good, but it's a bit too casual for you now.
it's casual
It's-
and it's light. So
And, yeah.
yeah.
So you need to kind of look at this manuscript and say, wow, I need to expand on this. And it's not a reworking, it's just an
Sure.
expansion. It's just an expansion. So
Yep.
will you do me a big favor, and Michael as well, but especially me.
Especially.
Will you look at this manuscript again sometime in the near future and think?
Yeah, like
think
I
to
say,
yourself,
Michael Pye, my publisher over at New Page Books, which is now an imprint of Hampton Roads,
Mm.
and or of Red Wheel Wiser, Hampton Roads books. And he has been trying to get me for the last 2-3 years to do an update to that book. And I hope he'll still have me so that I haven't pissed him off too much by not getting it done. So
because
I need to
there
do
is a
that.
demand, because it is an intriguing, very intriguing subject. You come at it from an intriguing aspect, but it does come across as slightly naive and a little bit casual. So I think with
There's
the
a lot
year,
more I'd have to say, definitely. Now.
wow, could you imagine if you just took what you wrote and just said, wow, I want to write more about that.
That
This
book
would
came
be-
out 11 years ago, 2012.
Yeah,
And so I wrote it in 2011, but
it would be an instant bestseller, Scotty, because
well, I hope so.
knew if you really got stuck into this material again one more time for your last time, if you really got stuck into this material again and expanded this, it would probably be twice the size. It'd have to be edited down. I would say, it would be probably your greatest work. Okay.
Oh, we'll have to see.
And now don't take my word for it. There are many people on this channel who own this book, right? They don't owe any of the others, but they own this one. And there's a reason for that.
That
because
book
it's
has
damn
actually
good.
been the best one I've written so far
Yes.
as publishing success.
And,
I
and
think
like,
Yes.
that sold about, if I'm not mistaken, 40,000 units, something
Well,
like
there
that.
you go.
Which
Don't
it's not a
you work-
bestseller
don't you
by the
think
New
it's-
York Times standards, but it's worked for me.
But don't you think before you die it's worth a revisit?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
So my publisher thinks so too. And like I say, I hope he's not pissed I just haven't done it yet.
then I can
By
get
the way, I wanted to answer Jeremy Hansen said something about there's a lot of guys that are writing books for other guys. This is a book that I wrote for my friend Andy Dabbs. You can see down at the bottom with Scotty Roberts.
Oh, you finally finished it.
Yeah, well, this was published back in 4 or 5 months ago. And and it's he published it in a hardcover. And this is all there I am at the bottom. And there's Andy. And this is autobiographical by Andy. And so we published this. And then he published it. He sunk a lot of money into this. He did it in hardcover. And he ordered a lot of the hardcover. And then he started a few months ago, or maybe 3 months after it was published, 4 months. He said, I was going through that, and that doesn't really have my voice. And he wasn't being critical. He just said, it sounds more like you than it does me. And I said, well, I did my best to try to capture your voice in this. And so he's decided he's going to republish it, and he rewrote it in his own words, using the same basic structure, but going through and rewriting. And this, by the way, is this a black and white or a color edition? Yeah, this is a color. I did all these, I had color photos in there. That was his house up on the lake, stuff like that.
And you stayed with him for a long time.
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
correct.
Yeah, I was up there. I broadcast from up there several times.
Basically,
Mhm.
he figured it out. The only way to get Scotty to finish anything is to kidnap him and put him in.
That was pretty much the truth, Sarah.
Sarah. I think
That's his
you
wife,
did
Reagan.
kidnap him. Yeah.
So
Because I think that's what happened.
yeah, see, he'd say, "Hey, why don't you come up here?" And that was 3.5 hours from here. Why don't you come on up here for a few days?
And he was like, "You have the whole place to yourself. You have loads of."
That was pretty much it. And he was always there, but it was up on that lake, up on the point on the lake, and it was gorgeous up there, and it was quiet, and it was conducive for writing. So I did most of this book there, but this came out.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, this is one of them. This is a guy that's I can say it. He's a rich dude, and he had the money to publish it, and he had me write it for him. Now, after it came out, he said, "You know what? I'm going to try that myself. I'm going to try to rewrite it." He's not a writer, but he's teaching himself to write. So he's doing a good job. So,
When you got plenty of money, you can have any hobby you want, right?
yeah.
Right.
Jeremy Hansen says, besides religious books, what was the best book ever written?
Don't say the Bible because that's
That's a religious book.
Too
That's a religious
obvious.
I was gonna say something from Twain, like Huck Finn.
I liked a book like To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, there's so many good books out there, but to me, my experience, To Kill a Mockingbird was a perfect book. I loved that book. It put images in my head in the 9th grade when I was 14, the age Flynn is today.
Yeah,
I mean,
there are
images
classic
in my
books
head that are indelible and have always been there.
There's one book that is instantly, Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, which is his famous, brutal Western, which has been argued over since 1985. There's countless YouTube channels who have been arguing about Blood Meridian because it basically tells the story of the fall of Satan in a Western format. You probably have never read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, and it's basically the fall of Satan in a Western setting, a brutal Western setting, especially the American-Mexican War. And the brutality and is just horrific. And Cormac McCarthy is a controversial writer, even though he's massively successful in that he uses no punctuation at all. So he goes from these huge passages of description about the landscape and what you see before you and how you feel and all of a sudden, and then he's into a line of conversation, but there's no punctuation. And he doesn't give interviews very often. But an interviewer asked him, why don't you use punctuation, during a conversation or quotation marks or whatever, to differentiate between your descriptive passages and when you're one of your characters is actually conversing or speaking. He says, I don't like the squiggly things. I mean, isn't that brilliant? I don't like the squiggly things. They just annoy me, so I just leave them out. So it's like a stream of consciousness. I mean, this is one of the most successful men on the planet, most successful authors.
Speaking of the opposite of that, somebody who likes squiggly things, Jeremy also asked, where does Moby Dick fall in? I say Moby Dick for me. Melville was very thick for me. When I read it, I didn't read it. It was thick for me. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the story. I didn't enjoy reading the book. And of course, for me to say To Kill a Mockingbird, that's very 20th century. There's a lot of books written over the last few hundred years that are great books.
Casablanca, Scarlet, what is it? Gone with the Wind was a book.
A
bunch of that they actually turned around and made movies. The whole Blue and the Gray thing about the Civil War.
All the classic books. Like War and Peace by Tolstoy.
Right.
Have you ever tried to read War and Peace? It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And by the way,
like reading the Brothers Karamazov. Heavy.
Yeah. Talking about Moby Dick, he used to write in very short chapters. The whale turns up in chapter 360.
Yes,
in that book.
What is it?
It's like on page 500 or something. The whale finally turns up. I
did get a name for a dog out of that book, Queequeg.
Yeah, exactly.
So, one of the best authors that people overlook because he only wrote little short books was Louis L'Amour. Louis L'Amour was a true cowboy of the Old West and built his own Old West town. And I have read all of Louis L'Amour's books. But like I said, they're little bitty short paperbacks.
See, Louis L'Amour, I liken to authors like Leon Uris, who wrote Exodus, who wrote Mila 18, who wrote Trinity, all of those books. Or Robert Ludlum, who wrote the original book, The Bourne Identity, The Bourne Supremacy, The Bourne Ultimatum, all of those. He wrote all those spy and suspense novels. That's kind of the way I look at Louis L'Amour. they're great. And don't get me wrong, I would love to have a great series of novels out there that are great and cool. I still have a novel I'm working on that I haven't worked on in months, much to my agent's chagrin.
Well,
But
well, you might look at this before you look at that.
yeah.
I hope so.
I have a
Anyway.
whole list of things I need to write.
You've got a shit to do list. Yeah.
Yes.
But I've
Sorry.
done
Go ahead. Yeah, you were
The Sword and the
saying.
Clay and the How to Be an Archaeologist. Those were books that were fun. They were illustrated books, different kind of book. And they were fun and easy, I want to say, but not easy. Writing a novel, it's one of those things that is, it's daunting. Writing a book, even a nonfiction book like The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim, those books are considered nonfiction. And but writing a book like that, it's daunting. And writing a book like that, it's more being able to say, look, I wrote this book, rather than, hey, I'm writing a book. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
the process was ridiculous.
Is it
And,
daunting
yes.
because you're putting yourself out there and
Right,
putting yourself out there for
yes.
criticism?
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
And
Sarah,
it will-
And I
that's
got a lot of
exactly why.
criticism over
Yeah,
it.
so and it will come on it, Scotty.
Yep.
And a
I
lot of
got
people-
criticized over Nephilim. I got criticized over
Yeah, but
Reptilians, which was the follow-up.
you have received nothing but constructive criticism about Nephilim.
I can't say that. From my friends, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I had some
And
scientific people
we're
try to
not
take me
just.
to task
I
over
mean, if I
Nephilim.
didn't like it, I would say, Scotty, that was like awful. But
I
it's
appreciate
not.
that.
It's good. It's just good. But
I
by your
I
own
was in
admission,
a big event up here
it's-
in Minneapolis every summer. Midsummer is Convergence, and they have 30,000-40,000 people attend this event over the weekend. And there's all these rooms for debates and stuff. And I got asked if I would be back in 2012. It was either the year the book came out or the year right after. I got asked to be, you want to be part of a discussion panel on aliens and stuff like that. And I said, sure, I'll be a part of the discussion panel. And I got in there, and as I'm sitting at the table with a crowd of about 400 people in one of these ballrooms, I find out I've been set up to have a debate with a guy named Dr. P.Z. Myers, who is a crusading atheist, a crusading asshole, and a by his own word. And he's a professor of evolutionary biology at the University of Minnesota, Moorhead. And I was completely set up for that. I said, well, nobody told me this was a debate, but I'll do the best I can. And nobody did tell me it was a debate. So I'm going off the seat of my pants, whereas he's got a tablet there. He's got audience members that are even texting him stuff from my book and stuff like that. And so it became ripping on that book, Nephilim. And
really, they focused on that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of all the things to focus on, it was a little paperback book that.
Yeah. And I said, well, and I kept my cool very well. You know my attitude. Everybody knows my attitude.
Absolutely.
My attitude.
I'm sure you gave as good as you got.
Well, I one of the things I noticed was during the debate, I made the statement, there are about 600 different universal flood accounts if you take into account different religions, different tribal stories, and so on down through history. And the audience starts chuckling. And just a smattering all through the audience. And the guy that was on the panel on the other side of the debate with P.Z. Myers was a Harvard grad archaeological historian type of guy. And he just leans into the mic and he says, no, there are not 600 tribal stories about the flood. And the whole audience just claps and applauds him and gives him a standing ovation practically. And I said, now, wait a second. I said, I say there are, and you say there aren't. I said, I get the laugh and you get the applause. I says, that sounds to me like there's something here I don't know is going on. I said, and everybody, then they start to mock you for that. And it's the way I go, look, my attitude's good, folks. I said, I'm good. I said, I just understand now the criteria under which I'm here.
Yeah, and it is a scary thing. I mean, as far as I know, the natural successor, not the successor, but your equivalent, Timothy Alberino. You can look him up. He's written a good book on this subject, and it's very detailed. And he's gone into multiple podcasts, and he's an American guy, very serious. Sure. He's traveled around like you, and he takes it all very seriously. And his
keep talking. I can hear you. I got to go grab something.
Yeah, his study of this subject is kind of very, very deep and profound, and all the rest. And and everything he says is like Scotty kind of covers it in this book. The only difference is that Scotty he takes a more, I hate to use the word, but casual approach to it, or not as kind of intense, whereas Timothy Alberino is very intense about the subject. And I was like, there's nobody like Scotty Roberts who is going to blow this guy out of the water because he has the knowledge. But he has the knowledge.
Nice.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy about that? When their ego is so fragile, they got to stack the deck in their favor.
That's what I found. A lot of fragile egos.
But you think about it, Graham Hancock, and I've talked to Scotty about this before. He's I would say one of your company, but you're in Ireland and he's English, so I know y'all don't really mesh all that well. I don't want to start another debate with that, but I
like Graham. I like his wife.
Yeah. Graham Hancock, he swims against the current all the time, and he has hurt so many egos that they have called him everything but what he is.
Yeah,
they said, "Oh, he's a racist. He's married to an African lady that he met while he was in Africa and fell in love." Yeah. Oh, he's pseudoscience. He's whatever. He's making it up. He's a profiteer or whatever. And I'd like to ask him, guys, who says that he's a profiteer, how much money they made off their books? How much money have they made off of their lectures? That their ego is so fragile, they don't want their income stream interrupted by somebody who might have a different thought than they do.
Right.
But that's what it goes down to. They're like, oh, you can't say that. We've been doing this way for 400 years. Well, fuck me, buddy. You might be doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Graham Hancock is a good example, Michael, because he had a famous meltdown with the guy who
Zai Hawass.
Yes. And just before a lecture, he had a total freak out because he didn't want to hear what Graham Hancock had to say, and he was like, "Oh, there's no proof," and he disapproved of who was going to be on the panel, and he had a total freak out, shouting and screaming, and so that's on YouTube if you ever want to see it. And Graham Hancock was on the stage like dumbstruck at this guy kind of attacking him.
Well, the same guy I debated, Dr. P.Z. Myers, he was the one who had Graham Hancock removed from the TED Talks.
Yeah.
He campaigned against Graham Hancock being on there. That's the kind of guy P.Z. Myers is.
Well, what's the other little guy that hangs out with Graham? Giorgio, what's his name? He does Ancient Aliens. I like him.
Sulakis.
Yeah, I can't.
I'm sorry. What was that, Sarah?
Giorgio Sulakis, the one with the hair. Yeah. Troll hair.
Giorgio Tsoukalos, he pronounces it. Tsoukalos.
And somebody told me, they said, well, what do you like him for? I said, well, even if he don't know everything, I said, that man looks like he knows where the party is. That man looks like he can find some shit to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
George,
I think Graham Hancock is a threat to so many authors because he's basically saying you guys are wrong. Everything is much older, more developed, and more kind of set in place than you originally thought. Now,
sure,
you know, for any author who's written on these subjects, I mean, that's like a red flag to a bull. They're like, holy shit, this guy's telling us that all our books are wrong, you know? And because Graham Hancock is like, it's much, much older. It's much, much older, you know? And, you know, I can understand that in a way, because it's like, where's the proof? Well, you know, he's flown all over the planet. He's dived into the seas of Japan. Look at this monument. Look at this. He's climbed the highest mountains in you know, Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, and Malaysia. You know, he's gone all over South America, and he's like proved it. What is this? You know, this was man-made, and this is proven to be, you know, 12,000 years old. You know, of course, you know, the big one is the Geyser complex. You know, he's kind of set up to be kind of torn apart. Now, having said that, I don't agree with everything that Graham Hancock writes. He's written a shitload of books, and some of them are frankly a bit of a stretch, especially, you know, the Ark of the Covenant stuff and all this kind of stuff. You know, some of it is a bit of a stretch. But, you know, you have to, you know, he's very... I've nothing but respect for Graham Hancock, but I'm not one of these people who says, yeah, he's right. Because, you know, even though he gives his extended, huge 3-hour-long presentations about what this means and what that means, and
we had him up for artifacts. I used to put on the Paradigm Symposium, and we had Graham Hancock came up, and he needed 2 sessions to present his stuff, which is about 3 hours. And that was good. And we had Randall Carlson, who does work with him, was up at that time. And we did that symposium 4 times. And the first year we had the whole cast of Ancient Aliens, Tsoukalos, Von Daniken, Philip Coppens, the whole production.
I love Von Daniken. He's always good fun.
I got one little story, and then I got to wrap up for tonight. I may have told this before. I don't know. But it just came to me when you mentioned Tsoukalos. We had that event, and it's an event I put on that we invited all these speakers. We sold tickets for it, expensive tickets for people to come and see this event. They were like $350 for the most expensive ticket, $250 and $150 or $99 or something for the different levels of tickets you could get. And we sold like 700-800 tickets that first year. And so we were able to pay for everybody to fly in. We put up everybody in the hotel, all these speakers. We had 16 speakers that first year. We had Von Daniken, Tsoukalos. We had the producer from Ancient Aliens. We had George Norrie was here. Ian Punnett, Linda Moulton Howe.
You might have to tell people who them are. That's all
star-studded event.
Yeah, that's all custom that come off of Art Bell's show. George Norrie, yeah, George and what'd you say, Ethan Punnett or
Ian Punnett.
Ian Punnett
did the. I knew Ian before that. He was a local Twin Cities guy up here doing radio on Clear Channel talk show, and then he started doing the weekend coast to coast. But anyway, the first night was kind of a mingle. Everybody that comes in the first night, we're gonna go. We can all go sit in the bar after the opening kind of ceremony and presentation. And so I'm wandering because I'm the event organizer, and Micah Hanks was the organizer with me. John Ward was there. We flew him in from Egypt. And so I'm walking through the bar, and I hear Scotty, and it's Giorgio. And he puts his hand up. He's in the corner booth. He goes, "Come over here." And so I walked over, and it's Giorgio and his girlfriend and a couple of people I didn't know, and Von Daniken. And he said, "Come and sit with us." Okay. And I'm the organizer, so I get to do that. I had a suit and tie on and stuff, it was nice. And I'm sitting next to Von Daniken.
Wow.
And,
wow. You're sitting next to Von Daniken. I mean,
yeah.
The guy's it doesn't matter whether you agree with his writings or not.
Yeah.
It's Von Daniken.
No matter what, if you like him or not.
Yeah.
I remember his. I may have told you all this before. His assistant, a guy named Ramon, from Geneva, and when we were lining up all the arrangements, he says, "Oh, Scotty, there's one thing I must tell you." He says, "Mr. Von Daniken does not exist in the mornings, so do not schedule him for anything before 12:30 in the afternoons. He does not exist in the mornings." And it's even on his
He doesn't-
business card. Von Daniken
Yeah.
gave me his card, and at the bottom it says, "I do not exist in the mornings." And,
Because he's
so-
been taken by the chariot of the gods.
there you go.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
But I sat down next to him, and everybody's talking around the table. And whenever he'd say something, Von Daniken, everybody got quiet. Giorgio got quiet. The people with him. Oh yes, Eric. That's, and he'd talk. So we're sitting there, and I'm just listening to the conversation. And Von Daniken, he looks over at me. I'm sitting right next to him, and he puts his hand up. Doesn't touch me, but he puts his hand right about here. He's like this. And he goes, and he pulls it back and he goes, "I will not touch you." I go, "Okay." And he puts his hand back up, and everybody got quiet. He pulls his hand back and he goes, "Psst." He says, "Everybody keep talking." And so they all go looking at each other and start talking again. And he puts his hand up against the side of my face. And he sits with his eyes closed for a minute. And he goes, "You are a good man." "Okay," he said. And then we went back to drinking.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. It
I
was an
mean, not
interesting encounter.
not many people can claim that Von Daniken, kind of mind read them,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
palm read them.
So,
I mean, Charity of the Gods was written in what, 1968? I think the year I
something
was
like that.
born.
Yeah, he's 68. Yep.
Yeah. So 55 years ago, I mean, the guy is like 90. He must be, God, Jesus.
Now, he was at the time of that. That was 2012, October 2012. I think he was 72 or 74, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's into his 90s.
he's still kicking. He's doing something right.
The thing is, he's such a. I mean, he was around through so many generations.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he started this whole thing. Like, he started everything.
Yes.
I mean, his book was published during the time when the Beatles were still active.
Yes.
I mean, this is crazy. It's
There's-
crazy.
There's a movie, Chariot of the Gods, I tried to watch, and it was so dated that I could not watch this movie, Chariot of the Gods.
Yeah.
And
And
very old. Yeah.
And he's written like 5 or 6 sequels to that book. But the original book, Charity of the Gods, is 1968. It's just incredible.
And,
Yeah.
and the
Nobody, nobody outside of science fiction. But he was writing like pseudo science facts,
Right.
But there was lots of science fiction.
Well,
around.
and his book is
But-
basically, if you look at his book, Chariots of the Gods, it
Yeah.
doesn't draw any conclusion. It asks 200 questions.
Yeah,
That's-
it's like, what does this look like to you? What does
Yeah.
this seem like to you?
Right.
It's like all question marks. Does this seem strange to you? Does this look like this? What conclusions do you draw from that? It's
Yep.
not. He's not like, this is the way it is. I mean, for a guy who was writing in 1968, it was an incredible achievement to get
Right.
that book in print. And it's just extraordinary. I mean, where is he from? Netherlands or Austria or
Geneva.
somewhere?
Geneva,
Geneva. Yeah.
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
And I remember Micah Hanks and I were talking to him ahead of time before the symposium, just talking about stuff. And he goes, he says, "You know what my secret to long life is?" He says, "I drink, I don't know if it's vodka or something, and I smoke cigarettes." He says, "You and Micah," he says, "why don't you come to Geneva and join me at my house We will sit out on the veranda, look at the Swiss Alps, and we will smoke cigarettes and drink bourbon. I said, "You're on."
Sounds good to me. Sounds good
By
to
the way,
me.
this is that's a shot of the stage that night, where we had the Ancient Aliens panel up. So you got from right to left, you got the producer. I don't remember his name. I think he has passed away now. Von Daniken in the blue. Giorgio is next to him, and Philip Coppens is next to him, and then their camera people. They came and filmed the episode for Ancient Aliens, the Von Daniken Legacy. They filmed at our symposium, which was very cool. So that was the front stage.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
So I was looking for the picture I have of me. It was that night at the table, and we stood up, and Micah was sat down next to him later, and I'm leaning on the table looking at the camera, and Von Daniken's looking. I couldn't find it. It's buried in my files somewhere, but there you go. That was 2012. Is when that took place.
2012. And it's interesting to hear about Von Daniken. He's probably the one of the last surviving, original authors of this kind of work. And his I suppose the best thing he could tell you was like you drink lots of vodka and smoke lots of cigars, So go figure, And he's still hanging around. And
he is.
For all we know, he's still doing conferences,
more than likely.
Yeah.
So
he's just an extraordinary man. He's just an extraordinary man.
He's an extraordinary man.
Yeah.
He got mad at me 2 years later, and he doesn't talk to me anymore. But
why? What did you say to him?
I didn't say anything. We had a sponsor for our event for 2 years later, the 2014 Paradigm Symposium. And Von Daniken was going to come and reprise his appearance. And about 2 weeks out from the event, we had about a $25,000 sponsor that just disappeared. I think it was a bunch of crap. They dropped out and disappeared, and kept giving me excuses. Oh, the money's in the mail. Have you gotten it yet? Oh, we sent you a package that has $25,000 in cash. Have you gotten that yet? No, I have not. So we're scrambling. We didn't think we'd even get the doors open. And so I called Von Daniken. I said, "There's no way I can bring you in because I can't pay your fee." And I said, "I can't ask you to do it for free." I said, "The best I can do is ask you to come and know that we'll get you paid for. We've got your airline paid for already." And he came to the city, but he didn't show up to the event. And I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying there was bad blood as a result of that. And as his assistant Ramon said, he says, "Well, Scotty, I just want you to know that Mr. Von Daniken will never speak to you ever again for the rest of the world." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you for that."
I think Von Daniken was bound to end up as a bit of a Andy Warhol kind of
and I don't say that to demean him.
Yeah, I mean,
he had a schedule put together, and he had several appearances he was doing, and we were paying part of that by paying him. And
it's disappointing though. But
it was disappointing.
But not many people can say that they met Von Daniken, and even today the demand for his work is exceeding. I mean, he's still alive, which is incredible. But I mean, he has probably the seminal work on this on all.
And he was
not just biblical, but also
that 2012 event. He was fantastic. He came. I asked everybody that was a speaker. I don't care who they were. I said, "I want you not just to come and speak, but I want you to mingle with everybody." I said, "After every evening when we're done with the event, I said we're going to meet in the commons of the hotel, play music. We had musicians there and people gathering. I said, I'd like you to come and be part of that." And he said, "I can do that." And I remember seeing him. I will say this about Von Daniken. That first year, he would go outside the side door to the hotel and sit out there was a concrete bench out there, and he'd have a little snifter, a drink with him, and he'd smoke a cigarette or two. And I saw a young couple walk up to him, and this happened many, many times. He'd sit out there. Young couple walked up and go, "Oh, hi, Mr. Von Daniken. We just wanted to say hello." And he kind of scooted down and he pats the bench. He goes, "Here, you come and sit with me. We talk." And he sat and talked with him for 20 minutes. And that's what he did. He was very gracious that way. And it was just that bad thing the next 2 years. Then Giorgio got on my case about it. Bad blood with Giorgio because of that. And the producers of Ancient Aliens said, "Don't worry about Giorgio. We got to talk him out of the tree every week or so." And yeah, there was some negativity there that brewed because of that. And it was out of my control.
I wouldn't read too much into it though. It's like I don't think it was personal. I think probably Von Daniken during his long life, he became somewhat of a rock star,
Sure.
and basically a lot of his minions, used to look after him, were probably pretty insulting in one way or another. Maybe they demanded a certain amount, whereas Von Daniken himself, as you perfectly described, is very approachable,
Right.
and he
Very
will talk
approachable.
to anybody.
He's got his idiosyncrasies like anybody else.
Yeah,
I do know this, and I do not say this to demean him. I've spoken well of him over the years, but one of the things his assistant told me when I said we can't pay him, we can't guarantee we can even pay him until we open the doors, and because we're working from a deficit now, and he says, "Well, he will not attend your event," and he says he was planning to buy a piece of artwork on his way home, and now he will not be able to do that. So without your monies, and so he is very upset with you. And I said, "Well, I'm sorry he can't get his artwork." I said, "We'll do our best." And as it turned out, we could have paid him every penny at the close of the event.
You see, that's the problem with having these people who speak for you, because I'm sure after all these years, Von Daniken is not short of a few dollars,
Right.
So,
I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing okay.
He wrote on the back cover a testimonial on the back cover of the Exodus Reality. And I don't think I have an English version here, but I think I do have the Exodus cover. Let me just see. Hold on. And if I've got that cover, I'll tell you what he wrote about our book. And by the way, he gave us a glowing testimonial after
Which
the
book?
first year.
Which book?
Exodus Reality.
Okay.
But he gave us a glowing testimonial for the Paradigm Symposium. He says, out of all the conferences I've been to, he says, this is by far one of the best congresses I've ever been part of. And he said about the Paradigm Symposium, which was nice. But let's see if I've got it here, the cover of the book, and I'll tell you exactly what he said about, and it's on the back cover. If anybody's got the book, you can pick it up and you can, here's the cover. Okay. This is what Von Daniken's, it's small, a small version. Let's see if I can read it. He said, the character of Moses and the topic of the Exodus are historical enigmas that have given rise to entire branches of Egyptological study and research for centuries. I applaud Scotty Roberts and Dr. John Ward for their research and contribution to this study. While there exist many different opinions and conclusions to these matters, their efforts represent a passion and scholarly approach to the topic. I'm honored to endorse the Exodus Reality. Eric Von Daniken, author of History is Wrong and Evidence of the Gods, which were his new books that year. So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
So that he gave us that.
You must have been really chuffed with that. So you must have been really.
That was something. That
was
really
something,
good.
So.
So
I'm going to go to bed, guys. I'll say good night, Michael. Good night, Sarah. Good night, Scotty. It's been a pleasure tonight.
It's been a pleasure, Niall. You have a good night, brother, or a good day.
And
now you'll probably sleep till noon.
I have a busy day tomorrow again. I'm still thinking about the Chinese girl. I hope to meet her in my dreams. Yeah. So you guys have a great night, and talk to you soon. Talk to you soon.
Good to have you here. All right. Unleash Jeremy Hansen. He said, Mike Lindell has asked me to speak at his conventions multiple times. I just have no interest. Don't want bad blood either, but I have no interest. I get that. I understand that.
Yeah. Do what makes you happy.
That would be cool, though.
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to start wrapping it up. It's midnight here, which is 1 a.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
Yeah, I gotta get to work.
That's right. Oh, you're still up over there too.
Yeah. Just barely. I'm flagging a bit. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you for being here. It's good to see you again.
Guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Or hear you again.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
All right, Michael. Good to see you, brother.
You too. Like I said, find me the reptilian so I can build my library.
There you go.
Like I said,
that one's not an audio. So,
like I said, I try to do a shameless plug every time I can. Every little bit helps.
I appreciate that. So you have a good night. We'll talk to you soon. Right. Jeremy Hansen, good night, brother. Good to see you. Michelle Canham Free, good night. Anita Palmer, good night. Everybody that I see that's still here. I think Susie Q is gone already. Anybody who's still here, we've only got, I think, 7 people left in the chat room. That's it. And but everybody who stuck it out, thank you for being here. And I'm going to get out of here. So I appreciate your being here. And you know what? We'll see you Wednesday. No, tomorrow night for Robertson, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, and 10 p.m. England time. So all of you have a good night. Live long and prosper.